What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio. Transmitting from the future-free state of Greater Idaho, I am the one-armed madman. And back with me, we've got Hermes Auslander. Hermes, you're from parts unknown. I should have gotten that part in there, but I forgot. Anyways,
Yeah.
I am not a shock jock. I do not do this for a living.
You could fool us. It's okay. One
Yeah.
day it will be rolling in more than a couple bucks. We'll figure out how.
Yeah. So how we doing, man? How's it going? We're living in a tumultuous world.
To say the least, I think that is a good way to put it. Yeah. Things are going, man. They're always going. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. There's peaks and valleys. Been recording a bunch the last couple of days. So, I'm glad I could sit back and be not the producer side of the house again and hang out with you for a little bit. So that's always nice, man. That's always welcome for me.
I know it. I love going on other people's podcasts because I can just unload and say whatever I want and then not have to deal with any of it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to hit it hard here in the next couple of weeks. I've got like 5 episodes in the can right now that I need to get out from like the last 2 days. But I broke my shoulder snowboarding I guess it's 7 weeks from Friday. So I'm on week 8 now. And it hasn't been a fun go. Luckily it was my stump side, so I didn't lose everything. But man, what a nightmare. I'm still all bruised up and jacked up. I can kind of lift it like this. But no more sling, which is a good thing.
Oh man! So what did you actually do with it that broke it? Did you
snowboard?
Did you land on it? Did you land on it and hit the top of the humerus there and crack that? Or
so what happened was I went down. It was icy. We were at night, and I was being very responsible all day because I'm kind of aware of I don't have a lot of muscle on this side, and I don't do a ton of snowboarding or physical activity or anything like that. So it's be careful. Don't do anything stupid. It's the end of February. It was icy as hell all day, and then we went into the night. And so we're coming down this last round. I'm I think I'm done, guys. I'm fucking wiped. And I stayed a lot longer than anybody thought I was going to. I drove myself up, and they're oh, he's gonna bounce quick. But I stayed all day. And I'm I gotta be done. They're let's do one more. So we go up this lift, and my fucking stupid buddy drops his goggles on the lift. And I'm just God damn it. And he's fucked up. So he doesn't really even know what the hell is going on around him. And I'm okay, we're between lift 4 and 5. So we go down. I get his goggles for him. We get down to the bottom. I'm all right, guys, I'm done. And they're well, that wasn't even really a run. You guys had to go off by yourself, and you did that. And let's do one more run with just all of us, and then we'll go. Okay. So I had been going slow with my buddy and his wife and kids all day. And then our buddy John met up with us, and he was hauling ass. And I was all right, fuck it. I'll stick with John for a couple minutes. And I just slid out going down a hill. It wasn't that hard of a crash. I hit my ass pretty good, but I landed right on my elbow. And that compression pushes up and into the humerus. So it broke right by the joint. And I'm so bruised up on my elbow and my shoulder. And the problem is I didn't crash that hard. It was a hard crash for sure. I'd put it I don't know, a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. So it was a decent crash. But
okay.
I don't think I would have broken my shoulder if I landed on this side.
Okay. Yeah. I'm getting the picture of it. Yeah, man.
I just let the atrophy go too far on this side.
Yeah.
So my next mission is to get some muscle built up over here again.
All right. Yeah. Do some raises and do some presses just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to do some rubber band work and get into rubber bands.
Yeah. Doing the old 80s Pilates white women exercises. I love it.
Yeah, I already bought my spandex with the thong leotard on it.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's
you can't do it without that, right?
Without. Exactly, man. Well, I'm glad it wasn't too bad. I am glad that it sounds like most of it will be healed, hopefully in the same place, and it won't be a year's plus ongoing recoup or any of that. So that's good.
No, I should get pretty good mobility back. I can't raise it very high right now, but when I go out in my hot tub, I can move it around really good once it's underwater.
Okay. So just get some blood flow in there. Yeah. It sounds like Sounds like all things considered, you already knew that you needed to be careful, and for the most part, you were. Is that damn John? If John wasn't speeding down the fucking mountain, that's who I blame
Got
here.
me.
Is John?
No, it's still my fault because I have that competitive edge to me, and like me and John grew
John
up.
should know that, though.
I know
Come
he
on.
does. Me and him grew up racing dirt bikes together, so we're very competitive. When I see him
Yeah.
going fast, I'm like, "Ooh, I can't allow that. I have to catch
Yeah.
up. I have to prove that I can still snowboard just as good as the two-armed guys." You know, like that. It's typical man bullshit that like you look at it afterwards and it's like, God, that was so stupid. Like John didn't care if I hung with him or not.
Exactly. Yeah, John was having a good time regardless.
Yeah,
and
oh, he
now
was having a
everybody's
really
gotta
good
pick your
time.
broken ass up off the mountain and everything.
Yeah, I snowboarded down. I got into like I snowboarded down immediately. I said to John, I'm like, I'm hurt. I gotta go. You know, and I guess he didn't even hear me. And so I like got it. I got down the run, and as I'm like walking to my car to drive to the hospital, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go into the EMTs here and get a sling, just to make my life easier. And by the time I got the sling, everything was just hurting like hell, and I didn't want to drive myself anymore. So, luckily, we had two vehicles up there. My buddy was able to drive me down to the hospital because
Yeah.
that would have sucked.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're surrounded by friends and you're recovering all right. So
Yeah.
how many weeks ago was this? You said 8, roughly?
7.
7 weeks
Yep.
ago? Damn. All
Yep.
right. Well, then you're on track. You're doing
Yep.
great. So
It
all in all,
it took a big step on week 6. Like I went to the doctor, the orthopedic again on week 6, and it took a big step that week. But then she had me take off the sling that week, and for the last week, it's been really fucking sore. So it's taken a step backwards, and
Yeah.
I kind of think it's probably not healing as fast as like a normal arm would because I have so much atrophy and I have very little blood flow going through that area. So after thinking about it, I was like, ooh, maybe I should have wore the sling for another week. But
Yeah.
I'm hammering through the pain.
Oh man. Well, I do hope you feel better. Yeah, keep it moving. Keep sitting in the hot tub, like whatever you got to do, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that we can. I'm glad you can still record. I'm glad it didn't take the full function out of the life with the right arm. That would have been, oof. That would have been Depression City, right?
Oh, I know it. And like this is where it gets gnarly is so the last time I had a spinal cord, and we got to stop talking about me after this and we'll get into this.
No, that's we're on your show. That's what we're doing.
So like the last time I had a spinal cord stimulator surgery, I've got hemorrhoids from doing drugs for so many years when I was younger. And I ended up having to have a hemorrhoid surgery because like I think I just like wasn't strong enough. I didn't have the core strength to like get it back up into where it's supposed to be. So I knew it too. I was like, oh no, I'm going to have a hemorrhoid problem too. So I ended up having a hemorrhoid problem for like 2 weeks and they couldn't get me into the surgeon this time. It was just taking forever. And like, I ended up having to lube up and go into the shower and ups the daisies. And I got that fucker up on a shelf and it's doing better than it has in years. So there is a silver lining to everything.
I love it. This is exactly what Too Hard for the Radio is all about. It's pushing the hemorrhoids where they need to be.
I should have recorded the sound. I should have gotten the sound because it was like,
I feel like that's every straight man's reaction to anything going near the ass. It's just
so horrible. And I'm like, how do gay guys do this shit? Like,
man, I have a buddy over right now, Bo. He's our resident token LGBTQ. We'll say,
good.
and he'll laugh by hearing that. And I was like, you sure you don't want to like just hop in? Maybe if we swap, because like I'm gonna do your show and then maybe he's gonna do our show. Like, you don't want to hop in on this? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm not good with politics. I'm good. And here it is.
Here
Here's
we are.
The silver line.
This was your opportunity,
personal
dude. Like, we needed you now.
How do you guys do this? But I'll ask him after the fact, and we'll put it up on Twitter. We'll make sure that the research is done and all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
I always say that my life would be a whole lot easier if I was gay because, I've already got hemorrhoids. I've got no teeth. And I'm pretty sure there's a market for putting this up something.
With enough lube, I mean. Oh fuck. That was the direction that I think we've all we've all played with the idea of, I bet it would be easier when the wife is bitching at you that if I was just gay, this would just not be my problem.
I know,
And at the
right?
same time, yeah, why not have a lubed up stump as part of the foreplay and sex that we're engaging in? You know what? If it ever ends up being a thing, man, you let me know, and then if I'm in the market for it, the wife ends up leaving me, we'll work something out here.
My dad always used to say, I wish I was gay, man. You got 2 male incomes, nothing but dirt bikes and pickups.
Right? All the
Nothing but
toys are in
fun.
agreement here. Yeah. We don't have to worry about going curtain shopping. We're just going to go fucking dirt bike shopping. That's
Exactly.
just a win-win all around. I love it.
Oh,
man.
man. That's fun. That's fun. Yeah. So,
Now we got the
politics.
housekeeping, and like I said, you're good to go. You're out of the neck of the woods, so to speak.
I
No
am.
major complications.
I am.
It's good to hear, man.
And
It's good to hear.
starting to feel better too. Like I got sick for like 2 weeks. It was just one of those things like when it rains, it pours. And just
Yeah, tell me
everything
about
went
it.
to shit. And I ended up taking like a month off of the podcast just because like my co-hosts were out for a couple weeks and I ended up just like not feeling like pulling fucking guests and shit. I was like, you know what? I haven't taken a break from the podcast since we started it. And
Yeah,
we're just
I
gonna
feel
take
that.
a quick little break here for a couple weeks. But we're back and we're back and loaded for bear.
Well, fuck yeah. I'm who better to get on and bullshit with all of the shit that's
Exactly.
going down with the I don't know, did you see that Douglas Murray conversation?
Oh, dude, I have some notes about that. It's so
Bro,
much
I was hoping we get to talk about this because you're the other guy. I was thinking like I would love to just go back and forth with this one. This is just something else,
it was
right?
something. It was beautiful.
I mean, again, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but the amount of ignorant individuals that are on the side of Murray that are like, "Oh, he mopped the floor with Smith." I'm like, dude, what? This is one of those instances where I'm actually at a loss of like, what did you actually watch? This is as clear a case of logic beating out over bias and talking points that I've ever seen in my entire life of actual, and the amount of like decorum that it took for level-headedness to trump the day, so to speak, pun intended. What the fuck are you talking about that you think Murray came out on top there? I'm at a loss here.
wild.
What were you watching? How did you how? So man, like I would love, yeah, let's fucking do it, man.
I saw this Twitter account that was tweeting about this. It was like the Misfit Patriot or something like that. One of these opportunists that they all tweet the same thing with the same title, breaking, and then they repeat exactly what Grok says to you, you know? So this guy, he's like, he's doing a retweet of somebody who was like, Douglas Murray is the king of logical fallacies. And they just list all the logical fallacies that he committed throughout the entire fucking thing. And then this guy is like, you guys are just talking and making up words that don't mean anything. And Douglas Murray is a scholar. And it's like, oh my God. So because you're stupid, we all have to talk stupid?
Right?
You don't know what a fallacy is, so we're not allowed to point out that they exist? Huh?
That was the thing I tweeted immediately when I was listening to this. I was on duty, luckily, so I had basically that entire day to listen to the podcast while I was on duty, and as I'm going through it, I'm just sitting here like, wait, and it started out rough automatically. He was like, Joe, I wish you didn't have so many one leaning sides. Let me tell you how to run your show, kind of thing. I was like, okay, well. That's kind of arrogant and pompous, but
I could not stay calm if I was Joe like that. You ain't gonna tell me how to run my show. Go fuck yourself, you little British.
It's very
freak.
timely for myself. Yeah, it's very timely for. But on the other side of it, though, it was like I've seen Murray on quite a few debates, and he seems to be an intelligent guy. He seems to be well read.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, this should be a really good, interesting conversation. Dave Smith obviously is very, knowledgeable on a lot of these things. So I'm just like, okay, I was very much, ready to go. And then it starts out this way. I'm like, okay, that's not a great start. And then it continued on, and there was maybe some back and forth, points where I was like, okay, I can see where okay, Doug, I get what you're going with. Dave, I still think has a better point, and I would side more heavily with Dave throughout this,
sure.
but I see what you're doing here. And then that instance, that's the one that was the biggest sticking point where he's like, have you ever been to Israel or Palestine?
Oh my
Have you ever
God. Yes.
been here? Well, I tweeted something today, I think, where it's obviously the internet remains undefeated. So over there on Scup Up Pod, I was like, yeah, the internet remains undefeated in long live the wild, wild web, because it was Douglas Murray debating Douglas. I want to say, just based on the background on some of the clips that it had, was Douglas Murray on Lex Friedman's podcast. And he was, basically saying, yeah, if you ever come at me with the argument of like, oh, well, because you've never been somewhere, because you haven't actually witnessed something, or, yeah, you might lack wisdom, but that doesn't mean you lack the knowledge to speak on it. I'm going to talk, and this is Douglas Murray saying this, I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about whatever I want to talk about. I have the freedom to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And then it interjects to him on the Rogan Experience, like, well, if you've never been there, I, as a journalist for integrity, have this rule that I never talk about something if a country that I've never been to, at least in passing, and it's just the very clearest sign of hypocrisy and doublespeak and just blatant irony, if anything else. But like,
Yeah.
it's just it was I love when the internet can pull up some dirt on someone, especially someone as publicly speaking, a public figure like Murray, where they're just like, well, here's Douglas Murray completely contradicting. I saw a Kyle Kalinske clip
Oh, he's the
similarly done.
worst.
Yeah, well, people change, sure, but when you change in this direction, don't be surprised when the internet pulls up all of the contradictory information and stances and opinions that you used to have that you can then so they can clip and debate yourself with. I mean, come on, guys. Like, you got to realize by now, especially being that high profile, that we're going to do this, that this is going to happen. I mean, it's just, come on. It just makes it look so stupid and so, yeah, it's you can't, indefensible right here. The whole thing, the fallout from this, I was telling everybody, I'm like, if you haven't heard this conversation, go ahead, either go through the majority of the clips and coverage that people have gone through and done on it, or just do yourself a favor. So, like myself, I like to hear it from the horse's mouth. Go listen to that thing, because it is a train wreck for Murray. And again, as someone who would have said, he's probably a smart, well-read, intelligent guy.
Yeah.
He did not come off that way in this debate.
Did you look at any of Douglas Murray? Not Douglas Murray. That's who we're talking about. Did you look at any of Daryl Cooper's tweets about this?
I have seen bits of them. I haven't seen all of them. I didn't go to his profile specifically, but a couple of them, yeah, it was like, yeah, I mean, well, he was like inviting him, yeah, come on, come debate me. You ever have a problem with this? And then also pointing out a lot of the, again, fallacies that he was, saying in the episode on Rogan. It was just, yeah. And that's the thing, the fact that, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say he had probably the sickest burn I have seen on Twitter in a long time. So he tweeted like the picture of them two that Dave tweeted out, and he said, "Line up to see the jester make sport of the court fop."
Yeah. There.
Whoa,
yeah.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
And
Give it.
like even throughout history, like the jester that was his job, to point out the absurdity of the elite ruling class. Like that was his job. Come in and make us all look like fools for a few minutes so we can have some perspective on things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And,
No, absolutely. Well said. No, I
Dave
agree.
is so good at this shit. Like I have to try really hard to suspend my biases when I'm watching this type of shit, because I immediately I'm going to take Dave's side on everything. It's just
as a libertarian.
yeah, like well, not just that. Like when I got into politics, like I ran out of stuff to watch on TV. It's how I got into this shit. Like I was hurt, laid up, not doing anything, and finally it was like there's nothing on Netflix anymore. I've watched every fucking sci-fi B movie on Amazon that I can find, and I'm just bored and I'm out of shit to do. And I found this documentary that I watched. It was called Collapse by Michael Rupert, who was like a conspiracy theorist back in the day. He ended up killing himself, but it was good. It was about like peak oil and the financial system and a bunch of other shit. And I was like, this guy's pretty fucking interesting. I'm going to see if I can like find something on the internet about it, So I go on and I find this interview that he did with the guy from Fear Factor, Joe Rogan. It's like 2 hours long. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Let's listen to this. And immediately I'm hooked,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Start going down the rabbit hole. And Dave has a podcast called Legion of Skanks with a couple of his comedy buddies. And they were on Rogan one day, and I was like, oh, these guys are funny. I like their brand of humor. So I started watching their podcast, And pretty soon I started watching Dave's podcast. And at that point, he explained, what a libertarian is. And I realized that I'd been a libertarian my entire life. I just didn't know what it was. He's telling me all of the things that I've believed my entire life. Like, I thought I was a Republican because my grandparents and parents were Republicans. My parents
Yeah.
didn't even know what the fuck a Republican or a Democrat was. They were just Republicans because that's what their parents were. That type of thing. And like,
Mhm.
I remember asking my grandfather about it once. I was like, why are we Republicans and not Democrats? And he's like, well, the Democrats want to take away your motorcycles. They want to take away your guns. And he went all through this list of things. It was a very good, list for somebody like me to go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But then I get into high school, I start smoking pot, and it's like, well, these guys want to hang me for smoking pot. Like, that's a little
Mhm.
weird, Like,
Mhm.
I don't agree with that. And you start learning a little bit more about the wars, and it's like, well, I don't know about them. Maybe we shouldn't be sending my buddies over there to die and blow their brains out later. Like, is this really necessary? And then, you get somebody who, like, is very good at articulating things, and it's like, wow, these are all the things I believe in, and I'm not crazy. Like, there is a section of people in this country that think the way that I do, and not only is it not crazy, but it might be the proper way to look at everything.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100%. That feeling, especially of like vindication. Yeah,
Yes,
like I'm not crazy.
exactly.
This whole time I was getting gaslit and, oh, well, you just don't understand history or the facts about history or the
Yeah.
fact or the nuance of this and that. And it's like,
And how disgusting of
okay.
this guy to tell us that we're not allowed to digest history and talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, that was, again, that was the nail in the coffin for me. He wasn't looking good. And again, I want to say I still respect Murray in the fact that, yeah, one thing I was talking to someone else about offline about recently in regards to this whole conversation is like, it definitely highlighted how much more I need to know about the conflict. It showed how much more I need to know about history. And again, I never want to come off as like someone who's so arrogant, like, oh, I've read all these books and I know all this stuff about history. No, absolutely not. Anytime I learn something new, I'm like, wow, because I didn't know that, and it's so glaringly obvious that I should have known that, or that it changes the perspective on the conversation so much. I've done a disservice for all these years not to have had that in my repertoire of knowledge. And this conversation highlighted so many instances where I was feeling, wow, I'm lacking any of the cursory,
Yes.
let alone foundational knowledge to even engage on the level that they are sparring right now.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that I can't listen and understand that Dave came out on top
Yeah.
here and that he made him look like a fool with all of his, examples and
Mhm.
references, et cetera. And the amount, the just the logic, the underlying logic that Murray had of this elitism
Yes.
was more than enough to hang himself with. But I would say the respect that I still hold for the guy is that he obviously knows so much about so many, whether it's historical figures and historical contexts as it relates to this conversation of Palestine versus Israel, if that's how we want to frame it. I need to do more reading so that I am better equipped to engage in the conversation going forward with other people. Having said that, you don't need to try a character assassination on a guy as Murray tried to. It was, oh, well, you've never been, huh?
Yeah.
Well, if you've never been,
You've
then you
never
obviously
been?
are the lower swine that I will not engage with in this conversation. You're obviously ill-equipped. The pompous arrogance that it was,
Get
like I
off-
said, was the nail.
Get off your fucking throne,
Seriously,
Like,
seriously.
you're a smart dude. Your voice matters. The Madness of Crowds is supposed to be a really good book. I've never read it. I felt the same way that you did. I was just like lacking. Like, I wish I had the ability to fact check them in real time. I was using Grok and
Yeah.
Chat GPT a lot, and I wish Jamie would have done that. So, like, one of the big ones was when he was accusing Daryl Cooper of minimizing the anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany by saying that Hitler downplayed the anti-Semitism early in his reign, I guess you would call him. I guess it would be in the late 30s. And he just freaked out. Oh, you can't say that, and blah, blah, blah. And so I asked ChatGPT, and it's like, oh, yeah, he did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you ever read John Tollin's book, that again, I need to be more well read. I had a conversation with Dom the other day, and he gave me, I'm gonna blank and fuck up the guy's name, a German author who was boots on the ground during that time, and I was like, oh, I'm all for that. I need to read that book as well. But John Tollin's being a 2-part massive, the size of the Bible biography on Hitler, identifies a lot of those patterns that he did, during the whole brown shirts, not revolution, but like movements and campaigns that they did during that time. Absolutely, when he post Mein Kampf, he was underplaying a lot of the things that he knew were only for his fundamentalist base, and because he knew if he could get the masses, a lot of these movements, especially like with the brown shirts, into, let's say, into line, into step with him, then he could have this movement of momentum behind him that could then sway further and further fundamentalist ideas into the conversation. But if you go out with guns blazes on, the earth is flat,
Yeah.
you're not going to get a whole lot of people. But if you start with, well, NASA has been lying to us in all of these cases, all right, now you're going to get a lot of people that are like, yeah, absolutely, they've been lying in X, Y, and Z instances.
Yeah.
You show the facts of their lies, then you have now this erosion of trust, and maybe now you introduce some more, oh, well, this is questionable, that's questionable. And now at the end of the conversation, oh my God, the earth is flat,
Yeah.
and now you have a base of the earth is
Yeah.
flat. And I think, yeah, to Carol's point, that absolutely happened. It's not a secret that that Hitler was very intelligent when it came to, riling up the crowd and
Yeah.
strategizing that emotionality. Like that was part of a lot of his his campaign and his speech notes that Tolland goes over and cites as a lot of his references on, like, what is it that I need to do and how did I. He gave so many. Hitler gave so many speeches
I've
and
listened
was
to
like,
a
oh,
lot of them.
this was what was powerful here. This is what they reacted to here. Similar to like a stand-up comedian. These were the beats that really worked in this crowd.
Yeah.
These are the beats that should work in this next crowd. And sometimes it did, sometimes it did. But the honing of the craft that he was after there, of riling up the emotionality of the German population, was a skill and was a craft. And to note some of the nuance of it, as Carol does, the fact that Murray took objection to that and is like, I can't remember the exact back and forth between Rogan, so I'll paraphrase here, but like Rogan and then we're like, well, wait, there are nuances here. It doesn't mean we're whitewashing the whole thing. It doesn't mean we're just like saying this is a good thing.
Yeah.
We're saying we should take note of these things so that we can take note of the things happening now rather than whitewashing this conflict of Israel, as Murray seemed to be very ready to do and wanting to do the entire conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like it is not appalling, but it is just as Murray, to quote him, it's just weird, right? It's just so weird, isn't it? His fucking weird. He started out the conversation that he put to it so many times. I was like, every time he brought it up, I'm like, yeah, so what? Weird to who? To you?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? What are you getting at here? That it's just weird. Okay, great. Can you address the conversational point
Make an
and
argument.
the logical? Yeah, come on, dude. Like, engage here. It's weird. What are you talking? What argument is this? It's weird. I don't know. There's so many instances of that where I was just like, what? Shut the fuck up and talk about what we're talking about here. Don't dodge and deflect and, well, it's just weird. I just think it's weird. Well, I think your fucking accent is weird, dude. How about that? What are you going to do about this?
And I would imagine the things you do in your private life are probably pretty weird too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you're saying that he's
I
in the
think
closet
he is.
doing something?
I think he is. The way he does his hands, and he's always doing this type of stuff, and his accent isn't just British; it's like royalty British. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between a street Brit, like a fucking Tommy Robinson, and
Sure.
that royalty, that he kind of speaks with. And I have a hard time believing that he was just wrong about that, about the Hitler downplaying it. I feel like that was a lie. And I think they do this because Hitler is such a hot button topic that if you say anything nice or flattering or even true about him that might like lead some people to think that maybe the narrative that we were fed isn't exactly what it is, claiming to be. Sure. And like, I wonder what his response would have been if Jamie would have pulled that up on the AI and said, hey, man, you're wrong. Because I guarantee he would have had some fucking hoity-toity response as to why the AIs are dumb and you can't trust them and blah, blah, blah. And I wonder how they're going to be able to control the narrative when it's clear that the AI is giving real answers and maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have the same baked in biases that you have.
Yeah. No, And I'm glad you're bringing up Grok. I had a conversation recently about it because I like to stay informed, especially as it relates to AI. I think from the, I know I have the receipts on the show. Anybody who's unfamiliar with our show, go listen to those specific, like AI discussions. Because as large language models continue to evolve, there was that instance where we had this conversation, like Theron and I, where it's like, is the art really art? Is it
Yeah.
going to take artists' jobs? That kind of a thing. And that was part of the conversation where I mostly engaged with. And it didn't take me very long to come around as similar to like the internet. It's like, this is a tool. We can be afraid of it and hide from it and get left behind, or we
Use it.
can really engage and try to understand as best we can and use it to the best that we can. And Grok, especially, I know everybody's like, oh, anti Elon this. Oh my God, what is
Grok's
he doing to it?
really
It's like,
good.
okay, shut the fuck up. I'm glad you have your opinion. And if you really want to have a debate about this, then we can. Because I'm pretty sure 3 months ago you were buying a Tesla and couldn't believe that you were, a climate activist, whatever. And now and the amount of stickers I see now on those fucking things is just, it, it's the mask all over again of like, you're just
Yeah.
showing to the public, showing to the rest of the general population, to the sane, rational population, how stupid you really are. Like, you're just ready to gravitate to the next dumbest fucking idea that you possibly can that's fitting your fucking bias. But
The
to the
next
point of Grok,
humiliation ritual.
oh yes, absolutely, yeah. Public shame,
It
public
is.
shame.
It's like a
Yeah, no, yeah,
humiliation
it is.
ritual. It's almost like wearing a tie. Ties are stupid. It's a
Hey, I
humiliation
love I
ritual.
love tying my little three Trinity, knot tie and getting creative with it. No, joking aside, absolutely couldn't agree more, dude. If I didn't have to wear a fucking uniform every
Oh, I
goddamn,
bet.
there are parts of that I like, and then there are parts of it that I absolutely loathe, and that is the paradox of man, is it not?
Right.
Here we are, but as it no, I just where was I going with that? I don't even
We
know
were
where my
kind of
rant
talking
was
about
going.
AI. I had a very productive conversation with ChatGPT yesterday. I kind of like I use Grok and ChatGPT for different things. Like
Hmm.
if I want to see a woke freak out, I'll use ChatGPT. If I
Yeah.
want to see more of a funny kind of like um I guess I would call I think Grok's a little bit better than ChatGPT.
I think
I
the amount of data that Grok has is yeah, better
Yeah.
than ChatGPT.
And so I pulled a Daryl Cooper on it, and this is something I say a lot, and I even prefaced it in the same way. It's like, okay, I'm kind of being hyperbolic, but I say this to people to induce a reaction out of them, and
Hmm.
that is that high school guidance counselors are some of the biggest villains in modern society. And I was expecting it to scold me and tell me no. I wanted the woke answer out of it, and it was
Hmm.
like, yeah, they are.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
very surprised about that. And then, it gives you this whole list about like how many people are in debt from college. And because these people just tell everybody to go to college. I was told to go to
yep,
college when I was in high school. I'm sure you were too.
yep,
And
yep,
like,
yep.
that is not the place for the majority of the people in society. Like, I went to college with a lot of 80 IQ people who had no business there whatsoever. And it's not like they fail out, they just drop the standards of the college to allow
Hmm.
them to graduate because if you didn't
Hmm.
allow them to graduate, you wouldn't get the student loan. You wouldn't keep the student loan scam going. You
Hmm.
have
Yeah,
to have these 80 IQ people to come in, get loans, and blow their wad in college on a stupid degree that you can't do anything with.
yeah. The amount of times, yeah, especially recently, that that I've seen this opinion continue to like propagate in front of me of, oh well, why aren't you going to college? Why didn't you finish it? Because I have quite a few credits, we'll say, and anybody who like will talk to me for more than a second, be like, "Why don't you do this?" or "Why don't you do that?" or "What?" It's like, because that's pointless. Because I'm not an idiot. Basically, is to summarize most of my responses in those conversations, like because I have better things to do and I can see this opinion propagating, especially as I'm aging, where they're like, "Well, that's so stupid. That's a waste of your time. I can't believe you would, think that and just waste the, ability or the opportunity or blah, 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 blah." And the amount of people then that I see on the opposite end where I've had these conversations with, and like you said, I'm not putting anybody down here, but are not fucking sending rockets to Mars anytime soon. We'll
No,
say that. We'll say it that way.
no.
And they're especially in the military, the amount of health admin fucking degrees that I've seen come down the pipeline, and now they're commissioned officers because, wow, they can do Excel. is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And the fact that we hold them in such high regard because they can do Excel and they're sitting there behind their desk crunching numbers all fucking day on how they can squeeze every cent and nickel
Yep.
out of the patient and out of the, provider patient experience is fucking disgusting. Let's
Yep.
call a fucking spade a spade.
It is.
And the fact that everybody's saying, "Oh, well, you didn't have a degree, so you can't speak on this stuff and you didn't do the work necessary." It's like, sorry that I realized it was a scam long before you ever did, because I've had these conversations with doctors who are, practicing 30 years and, down the road, and they come back saying, "Don't do what I did. I regret what I did. Like, I had no time for my kids. I had no time for myself, blah, blah, blah. If I could do it all over, I wouldn't do what I did previously." I've had enough of those conversations now where I can tell this 30, 35-year-old person who's a recent graduate, recent commissioned officer is like, more power to you, dude. The only thing I wish for you is happiness, because my gut says it's probably not going to end the way that you think it's going to end. I hope it does, and I hope you get all the fucking golds and riches out there, but my currency it's not the same as yours. My currency looks a lot different than apparently your currency and your aspirations for currency, however you define that is. And again, call me whatever you want, a deadbeat, this, that, the other, whatever, fucking look down on me from your prestigious castle fucking position, your throne. I have absolutely zero time and patience for any of that fucking shallow, vapid existence that you are chasing right now. I'm sorry to say it, and this is continue. Like I said, just more and more recently as it continue, where I see this like disappointment almost when Master Chief so-and-so is like, "Well, why don't you go to this? Or why don't you do that? It doesn't look very good for your eval." I'm like, well, then fuck the eval. I'm sorry, Master Chief, but you're telling me that you're getting 2 hours of sleep and you've never seen your kid, weren't there when they were born, and you're telling me that's what I need to chase and pursue so I can put on another rank? Fuck you. Go fuck yourself. I have no desire for any of that, dude.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to sell me on this fucking multi-level marketing scheme that you bought into 20 years ago, you can save that and shove it up your ass. I'm sorry.
Yeah, man. And you know what really drives me nuts about that class of people, like, the college grad class, the Zoom class, the liberal elite, the coastal elite, like all of these fucking assholes who really produce very little for society. They look at us like we're garbage. We build their roads, we build their houses, we give them electricity, plumbing, their modern life depends on the non-college grad who breaks their fucking back every day to make this country what it is. And they trust their lives with us implicitly. They don't even think about it because they can't. Like, their house could blow down any day. Their cars could break. Like, you take your car to the mechanic and you have to trust that that guy is going to do a good job and your wheels aren't going to fall off when you go out. And nobody thinks about it. But then when it comes to politics and voting and, policies, we're too stupid to know what's good for us.
Exactly. And we've never been to Israel, so we can't speak on it.
Exactly, right? And then you got people like Hillary Clinton calling us a basket of deplorables, and Kamala Harris was just so condescending. She talked down to people like us. She wasn't talking to middle-class working Americans. She was talking at them. She was telling them things. And like, the thought that the Democratic Party was going to force in this woman who slept her way to the top, a childless woman, as the first woman president. Like, did they really think that American, like middle class, working class Americans were going to vote for a childless woman?
Yes, they really did, because they assumed we were that stupid. They always have and always will assume. We are the and we can, in their eyes, when I say we as the Democratic we can spill and spin and, spew whatever we want to them, and they fucking eat it up. As long as we're saying the keywords of, we're not cutting Social Security, we're going to put more money in your pocket, we're going to take care of grandma and this, that, we're going to raise the tax on the rich, and therefore that's how we're going to pay for college and this and that,
they're
right?
finally going to pay their fair share, which they've been saying my entire life.
They all fucking, it's all a show. I've seen it so many times, and to the Republican side, it's not like they're any better.
No.
But to that point of your grandpa, it's like, there are things that I care about, and that's why I side the way that I do on issues, not parties,
Yeah.
not lines of politicians, because all of that is a fucking farce. It's a, give the masses bread and entertainment, and you can rule however you wish, right? What
Yeah.
paraphrase the quote as you may, they will never revolt because, yeah, as long as you can give them football or basketball
Yeah.
and bread,
That
they
was what
they
those guys from the World Economic Forum said. We're going to have a class of useless eaters that we're going to have to keep occupied with video games and VR.
yeah.
As if
Well,
that
I
would
mean,
be,
VR is pretty kick ass. I'm not gonna
yeah, but I mean,
lie.
for like country folk, people who work with their hands, who are out on farms and are working every day, they have very little interest in VR. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Agreed.
Like
Agreed.
I have very little interest in VR. I sit around my house all day. Like I could probably have some fun on it. I'm just not really that interested. It's not really my thing. Like I like playing video games, but I don't have like a setup to do it. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's not really taking anything out of my life. And to be honest, it would probably hinder me. I would probably get too into it and spend too
Yeah.
much time on it and not get anything done around here.
Yeah, no, 100%. My wife said it perfectly the other day. She really enjoys video games, and she says, but after she plays them for more than an hour or two, she feels like it's taking away, like she's wasting
Yeah.
time playing. Even though she's entertaining herself, just like a movie or anything else, she feels that the video game extracts too much time and that she's wasting too much on it, and she feels unproductive. She feels gross when she does that, and I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty good way to do it. And I've been out of the video game sphere. I really like VR in that it keeps myself, my co-host connected. We could do the podcast from VR. We can do things like that that are, collaborative
Yeah.
and producing of content and all that stuff. And similar to AI, to stay ahead of what the technology is. I always try, whether it's understand your enemy, mindset of is, if all of the next generation is spending, the next, I don't know, 12 hours a day on VR. I got to at least understand why. What is this that's so alluring, and how do I stay ahead of it so that we can talk about it, so we can dissect it, so that we can hopefully curb some of that addiction out there, or not, just so that I'm not just lost in the weeds with it.
Yeah.
But I completely. Why is it that all of these conversations with guys like you, guys like myself, a lot of probably our buddies, end with what our fucking pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is? What it looks like? It's fucking a farm with a chicken coop and self sufficiency. That's what self sustainability. Why does it all look like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, these VRs, as fun as they are, they're not providing the thing that we all know we need, that ability, that self-reliance, self-sustainability of this is ours, this right here is mine, this is
Yeah.
my safe space, this is my kingdom, whatever the fences look like, this is mine right here.
Yeah.
Or does it all look the same, or very similar?
So I stopped watching TV a couple years ago. I just don't really watch it anymore. Like movies suck now. There's not any great like there's just not a lot out there that really does it for me anymore.
Mm.
And I feel like TV is worse for you than video games because at least video games are like excuse me, they're like stimulating and they make you think and you have to like plan things out in advance and like your brain is actually working at least. You're not just like sitting there going like a zombie watching some stupid fucking movie that has nothing to do with anything. Like
Mhm.
I consume a lot of podcasts and politics. So it's like I'm under no illusion that the iPad is just a smaller TV and I'm watching different types of TV than,
Yeah.
you're splitting hairs at some point. But at
Hmm.
least like politics and current events, like those are important things to be caught up on. Like one of the things I worry about is like the Democrats, especially Hillary Clinton, have awoken a sleeping giant. Like the middle class, working class, Republican class of America had been asleep for a long time because it just didn't feel like anything was going to change, right? And then you get Donald Trump and you get Hillary Clinton, and she's just the worst fucking person on earth, and people just can't stand her. Before I knew anything about politics, like me and my ex-wife went to dinner at our neighbors in 2015, and they asked us like, "What do you guys think about like Trump and Hillary?" And I was just like, "I don't know, man. She's kind of just an awful, disgusting, terrible person. I can't stand her." And they're like, "Yeah, basically, you know?"
Hmm.
And I didn't even know anything about politics at that point, but I could tell that she was not a good person, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I've heard recently, and there's no way to really check this, but I've heard that a lot of Republican voters, a very good portion of them, voted for Trump and then nobody else on the ticket. Like didn't vote for any other position, no Congress, no local, no nothing. And
Oh
I
well.
do worry that when Trump goes away, that a big portion of his voting block is going to go back to sleep again.
Mm. Well, I don't disagree. I that is a very real possibility, especially with the fanaticism both for Trump and also against all of these just awful fucking Kamala and Clintons, like these alternatives. I mean, and we fucking had Joe Biden in there just asleep at the wheel with whoever the fuck it was, CIA behind him, pushing full steam ahead. We've had that, and therefore the fanaticism against that, I think, is just as bad. But I don't disagree. As soon as like maybe the water, yeah, basically the waves subside and the
Yeah.
water calms a little bit, yeah, are gonna be like, okay, well, we got through that storm. Let's take a break now and let's step back, and the same shit will continue because I know those vultures are just waiting for the chance, the ability to pop right back up. The piranhas will eat as soon as there's blood in the water. I think that is a real possibility. I want taking a step back though. What would you say to the idea? I disagree in a couple ways, but I wonder your impression or opinion on the statement that politics are just the intelligent man's sport.
Oh,
They're just the intelligent
absolutely.
man's. Yeah.
I think that they made politics a sport in 2015. And I think you can see that numbers on the NBA and NFL have dropped significantly. And I think
Mm,
people are just they're treating politics as it's a sport right now. Absolutely.
mm. I don't know. To me, I it worries me, and that yeah, I completely agree that that means that we're watering down and bastardizing something that does have real world implications. That's the part that scares me, is it a sport? Should it be a sport? It's like I don't take offense to the fact that if you're smart enough to realize that all the games out there are bullshit and rigged and probably and overpaid athletes are selfish little asshole brats anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, that needs to be nipped. Absolutely. On the flip side of it, does that mean just because you're smart enough to realize that you're dumb enough to buy into this other alternative sport that is politics, and that we should be treating politics that literally come down to who gets fed, how the roads are built, and who gets to tell me what fucking caliber of gun I get or don't get, or
Yeah.
where I can buy it and possess it, kind of a
Yeah.
thing? No, I think that is a much bigger issue than how many dribbles you get on the court and fucking what color your fucking team mascot is. I think those are not even apples to oranges kind of comparison there, right?
Yeah.
We're not even talking about fruit at now. So to the offense of if you're smart enough to realize that the sports are stupid, but dumb enough to buy into the sport that is politics, I wonder, is that not also back to the like give them bread and entertainment? I don't
Yeah.
want this to
Let them
be
eat
an
cake.
entertainment thing. I want this to be no, I give a shit about where my sewage and my water go and come from. I give a shit how good my roads are and how much you're trying to extract from me forcefully from each one of my paychecks of time that I spend breaking my back and giving to Uncle Sam here. That actually matters to me. That matters to the amount of time that I have with my family and my friends and things and my hobbies like that. Those should matter a lot more than a fucking sport.
Yeah.
So if politics is becoming a sport, I wonder, I fear that we need to do something that's not a good direction to go.
You have to wonder what it's going to look like 10 years from now, right? Like this
Mm,
last election was the first internet election. You know, Donald Trump
yeah.
used Twitter to win the 2016 election, but it wasn't, the corporate press was still the driving force of the narrative at that
Mm-hmm.
point. And this last election, they weren't. You know,
100%.
podcasts became the driving force of the narrative. Do you want to listen to JD Vance getting an argument on CNN for 5 minutes? Or do you want to watch him on Theo Vaughn for 2 hours and hear what he actually thinks? You know?
100%. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see like how the left reacts. You know, one of the things I have written down for my notes is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom has launched a podcast and
Mm.
he's pretty good at it, you know?
Is he? I
Yeah,
haven't heard it yet.
he's pretty good at it. And he's such a snake and a dirty motherfucker. So don't get me wrong in saying that like I
Mhm.
like him or anything like that, because I don't. I do respect the fact that he's just a blatant liar, and he'll get up and just like lie to your face and expect you to believe him. You know,
Mhm.
he had somebody on and he's like, well, I don't know what's up with this Latinx thing. All of a sudden Latinx showed up and people just started saying it. I don't know where it's
Oh,
came
really?
from. I've never said it. And then you see 5 clips of him saying it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
his whole goal on this podcast is to move to the right. You know, he
Mm.
wants to be the Bill Clinton candidate in 2028. And unfortunately, I think he could do it because he is good at this podcast thing. And there's a lot of people out there that don't pay attention for the most part. And so here's a good point on this. Liberals aren't going to know exactly what's going on because the liberal media doesn't show exactly what's going on. People are still keying Teslas and getting thrown in jail because CNN isn't telling their base to stop doing it. They're not telling them that people are getting arrested for it. And so these
Mm.
idiots just keep fucking doing it, right?
Mhm.
And you're going to get people who come in who have zero, like, don't know or don't care what happened in California for the past 8 years. And
Mhm.
like, I think that he's probably has a good chance of getting elected. I don't think he will. I think JD Vance will probably put it to him. But, you know, it only takes one really evil, really terrible person like Gavin Newsom that has zero, history within the party to come in and fill that role. And we don't know who that person is yet. Maybe it's Stephen A. Smith. I'm not really sure.
Mm.
He's
Mhm.
he's a very interesting guy because he's really good at talking. He's got balanced views on a lot of things, but he's clearly a Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. It boils my blood when Newsom gets brought up in the conversation because it's like, how many fucking times do you have to get caught lying? Do you have to get caught fucking up as a leader, quote unquote, leader
Yeah.
of a state? Yeah. I mean, don't even look at the past fucking 8 years. How is it that he is still floating after the fires and after all of
Yeah.
the COVID shit? Like, how did this fucking? How is this? That's what, the last 4 years. I just I'm at a loss. And anytime I talk to somebody, especially in the state of California, of what the fuck are you thinking? How are they getting elected? It especially recently, especially after the 2024 election, there is this weird shift of, we actually don't know. Like, as when I talk to a Californian, a lot of them are like, we actually don't know how these guys are getting elected. Like, it seems like we keep voting the other way, and it maybe sometimes it's kind of close, but it somehow, some way, they find random votes somewhere. And I'm not going to accuse fraud or anything, but
I
there
will.
is a weird there is a weird shift that I have noticed. Previously, it was like, oh well, they're the lesser of two evils. Oh well, we got to have the. Oh well, I'd say in the last, I mean, yeah, let's use your timeline of the 8 years. I think it has certainly started to shift, and numbers in the last election definitely support and show that.
Mhm.
But it is kind of getting to the point where it's like, I don't think they can keep this farce up without doing something drastic here, because most of the population is agreeing, like, yeah, we are not voting for them. We haven't been voting for them. We don't know who is voting for them. Anytime you ask somebody, they didn't vote for him.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It boils
Yeah.
my blood because I hope he doesn't. I really want all of that to be gone. And
Yeah.
the old guard needs to be cut out. I was talking to Bo earlier before we came on here to record. I was like, I don't know every single admiral and general that has been relieved, but the ones that I have read up on, they should have been gone a long time ago. So the fact that SecDev, yeah, he fucked up with the whole signal thing. I'll be the first one to admit it. And god damn it, you looked retarded. Why the fuck did you guys do that? Tulsi Gabbard, I talked you up. I have
Me too.
more. I expect more of you than what you said in that chat, and same thing with all of the others in there. I can't even believe this, that Vance was the most level-headed in all of that fucking signal chat. Having said all that, these admirals, these generals, they should have been gone a long time ago. They got to go.
Yeah.
So if anything, Morpheus, I know, is panicking and saying, I wish we were taking a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. I want a
Me
sledgehammer
too.
and a fucking 50 cal automatic with endless supply of
Yeah.
ammunition to
And,
this shit.
and one of those cranes with the big swinging ball.
Yes,
We got to have
yes,
one of those
yes.
things to just really go at it. You can't
Just
really
wrecking
destroy
it.
things
Yes.
without the ball. Maybe we'll get Wile E. Coyote down there and he'll get smashed by it or something
Absolutely.
like that.
Absolutely.
The Democratic voting base is zombies. They're just zombified. I was talking with somebody after, I don't even remember who it was, but it was after the LA fire, and they're like, oh, millions of people are going to demand resignations out of these people. And I was like, no, they're not.
No.
They're just not. I'm sorry. Like, they should, but they're not. And I know this because my aunt and uncle are Democrats, and they are from Lahaina, Hawaii, and their house burned down, and they lost their dog and their roommate and their best friend, like trying to put the fire out. And my uncle is doing everything in his power to hold water for the government. He's flying back and forth, testifying in front of this and that. And, oh, they did it. Everybody did a great job. It's like, dude, your fucking house got burned down. That was one of the most beautiful towns in this country. They did not do a good job. I'm sorry. Like, I know they're your friends because he's a firefighter, so he kind of like has to hold water for these things. And it's like, I know these are your friends. I know you know these people very well, and you can't like think that they did something wrong, but they did not do a good job. Objectively, you just have to step back and say these people fucked up. They fucked up bad. There shouldn't be a single wooden pole anywhere on that island, let alone the power being left on during a windstorm like that. It's just unexcusable. And they did the same thing in Los Angeles. You know, they multiple pictures of transmission lines on fire. Like, why the fuck didn't you turn the power out? It's so easy to just turn it off. Like, hey, we've got 80 to 100 mile an hour winds coming. Sorry, guys, but you're going to be out of power for the night.
Yeah, better the 24 than the fucking what, 24 days? Like,
yeah, better than losing everything. Deal with a night without power. You can go to a hotel if you feel like you need to have electricity and you're scared or whatever. But like, we cannot just keep doing this. Like, the power lines is just such an easy answer. And you've got stations. So we've got like, imagine like, NASA, they've got their big thing where everybody's sitting down and mission control. We have that for power lines too, for every area. So they've got this mission control and they're just showing all the lines. And every time there's a fault in any line, you can see it because a red dot pops up. Here's fault, here's fault, here's fault. We could go through and get all of that data and list like, okay, here was a fault. It was at this spot. This is where the fire, like these houses. We could easily find out if these faults caused the fires, but nobody wants to know.
Well, because you don't have to be actually qualified to run for office. You just have to run and be popular. That's the thing. If you're applying for a job, I don't know, name the fucking job, right? You give them a resume, it shows your qualifications, it says, that you've done this much time in this field, you have this kind of experience, this is what you bring, knowledge, to the table. If you're a politician who's going to run all of that shit above everyone, anytime a senator used to come through our fucking space, God, again, back to the boiling of blood, because you could just see the level, quote unquote, of knowledge and expertise that they brought to the table. And it's nothing. It's signing checks and kissing babies. That's their fucking game. That's their goddamn expertise. And so yet they're somehow in charge of enacting how, Fifth Fleet and Sixth Fleet are going to mobilize and posture for a specific event, and how we're going to address an aggression attack on this island or this, base. And I have never had confidence when I've ever talk to any of these people, because they are not that individual. They're not the ones who have been boots on the ground before, knows what it fucking takes, and knows how to get shit done. They're the ones who knows. It's they have never been there. Exactly, bro. Like it's infuriating, but that's a fact. You don't have to have actual experience or knowledge or know-how or anything else to run for office. You just got to be able to advertise and play the fucking game, so to speak, of popularity.
Yeah.
And now you're in charge of these water lines, these power lines, these sewage lines, and real consequences are a result of that fucking game that we're playing with it. So that's why I say, I mean, I'm afraid that we don't shift course away from that, from what maybe the Federalist Papers discussed on how we should dictate this government and how we should dictate this country, in terms of the conversation, let alone the policy that follows. But
so
what do I fucking know?
One of my big complaints about academia is that a lot of people go through it that have zero chance of like making it in the real world, in a free market, like in an actual job. And most of those people end up just staying in academia. they become
Yeah.
professors, or, like there's so many positions within a college that these people like just take. And they never go into the real world. Is that kind of the same problem in the military with like the upper brass? Are these people who just like got into academia after the military and were just like, oh, I can't survive in the real world, so I'm just going to stay in the military for the rest of my life?
I would say that is a good that over at least half of it, yes. And I think academics is a good analogy, and that it is a probably a broader issue there because of just the nature of the beast, so to speak. Because there are, like the Mattis types that were boots on the ground, were shaped. There's good generals out there that went up through the ranks, quote unquote, the right way, but they are so fewer and so far between now. I think in the last 20 years, certainly in my last 10 years in the military, you can see the shift very clearly the opposite direction. Where it's like if you're a fucking knuckle dragger, I don't care how well and how far you dragged, you're not going to get to the top.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are able to kiss babies and say the right thing and kiss the right ass, that's how you're going to get captain to admiral kind of a
Yeah.
shit.
It's wild because like of all of the higher brass people that I'm familiar with, like I think Douglas McGregor is just
Mm.
the fucking man. Like that guy is a
Oh yeah.
bad dude. And like
Oh yeah.
why is that guy not in charge of our entire military? Because
Be-
he wants to change everything about it,
I was gonna
right?
say because it
You
wouldn't
know?
look like it does now, dude.
Exactly. And that doesn't work for people. And like, I'm sure that this is a big problem. You know this, but maybe people don't. But like anything after 1 star is a political appointment, not a military appointment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the same issue with the chiefs mess we always had in the Navy, especially. It's like we're the only branch that has this weird fucking commissioned, enlisted kind of a thing,
Yeah.
appointees. So when they took all that away, obviously the mess was losing their fucking shit. I'm like, good, you guys never should have been. You're always the fucking too many chefs in the kitchen kind of shit, and you're ruining it for anything that's actually trying to get done. So I'm glad that you have a little less power. So fuck off. Like
Yeah.
take your fucking mafia and take your little brothers, little boys club of sucking each other off and get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
Honestly, just get the fuck out of the way.
Circle
Tired of this
jerks,
shit.
man. I'm so sick of circle jerks. It's like, yeah, like you just get these people who get into circle jerks and they're just blowing each other like, oh, we're so great, you know? Ugh.
Yeah, well, the rest of us who are not part of that circle jerk can see how disgusting it is from the
Yeah.
outside.
I mean, if
and
you're
how much-
looking if you're up in the stands going, what the hell are these guys doing down there?
Why are
This
they
looks
doing-
gross.
Yeah, exactly, man.
So-
I don't. Yeah, it's a fucking mess. But I have no solutions outside of how about we just use some common sense. Apparently, that's just too much to ask of anybody. So fuck them. I don't fuck. I really I don't even know anymore.
What's the temperature within the military on going to war with Iran?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I can't spill any confidential beans here.
Yeah.
There is a recent, we'll say, posturing that within literally this last week that we've started to discuss more and more. And one person, I won't name who, has been like, "Oh yeah, it's because it's Iran. It's because it's Iran. It's because it's Iran." I'm like, I don't care who it is or what it is. I just really hope we're not going to be that dumb to just get out of one, go immediately into the other. But every like sign that I'm seeing here is that something is fucking going on. We're posturing for something. It hopefully, and this is what the wife and I have now like sided now of coming off the fence of it, is we've just settled in the idea or the fact that this is another one of those posturings so that we can just display the prowess and the might that we possess, that we can posture. Whether it's an actual
Like a peacocking,
operation,
right?
peacocking. There, that's a good word. Exactly. That's what I'm hoping and where my gut is leading me to say. But if it's an actual operation that's going down, A, I'll be the last one to know. But B, my personal thoughts on it is fuck Iran,
Yeah.
fuck the Middle East, fuck all that shit. The unit that I'm with, a team just went out like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, back to Iraq, and it's just, I don't know. I just see 0 point in it. The fact that they went back out and now they're telling us like we're mobilizing, we're doing this, we got to get ready for that. There's a 12-month deployment coming down the pipeline for this ship or that ship. It's just like, I hope that deployment is just, we're patrolling around some fucking very, very calm waters, because if we're actually posturing to do an operation in that area, the clusterfuck that it will be. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I have zero confidence in our ability not to fuck this up royally. So
Yeah, me too.
the temperature on amongst the ranks
Yeah.
is, God, we fucking hope not. There's
That's good.
We just got through this. God, we fucking hope not. That's honestly
good.
where it is.
I hope that people with sense can get into Hegseth's ear, or like whoever's really pushing for these things. I guess it's probably Marco Rubio would probably be the guy that is most likely to be pushing this thing to Trump. And for some reason, Trump just really likes Rubio. I don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
there
Because
was
he sucked his dick. He's part of the circle
I
jerk.
guess, right? Like, they were doing this roundtable thing the other day, and they had RFK talking about how they're going to figure out what's going on with autism in 6 months. And Trump's like, that's a big deal, you know? It's a great, that'd be the biggest press conference ever. Marco, isn't that amazing? And it's like, why are you going to, and Marco's sitting next to him. It's like, why didn't you ask JD Vance? Like, why did you go straight to Marco? And why are you calling him Marco? And it was it was
It's just
a
weird.
very
It's just
weird fucking interaction. And I'm just like, why do you like this guy? You called him Little Marco when you were beating up on him, you know?
But he bent the knee. Marco bent the knee and showed his respect.
But he's still a neocon, you know?
I agree. No, I agree. All those neocons, fucking string them up, because I will not trade another single fucking E1 of anybody of mine for any. I will not trade a single one for any fucking political talking point for any of these fucking assholes out there. I'm fucking sick of it.
And that's so good to hear, because like I remember in 2001, like I had a lot of buddies go into the Marines and in the Army and shit like that. I signed up for the Air Force. I did really well on all the tests and everything. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but I blew my knee out, so I didn't get to go, which is, you know, probably the best thing that could have happened to me. Like, I wouldn't have been a fighter pilot. I'd have been flying some fucking cargo jet or some stupid thing like that I would have hated. So I'm glad that I didn't go. But the temperature back then was burn the entire place to the ground. It doesn't matter like what happens. Like, we turned that place into a fucking parking lot. And I'm just glad that like the rank and file doesn't think like that anymore, because there could come a point when like upper brass is going, hey man, I know you guys want to do this, but the troops aren't into it, and we might not be able to do what we need to do because the troops aren't into it. You know, I remember hearing that a lot of people in Vietnam that got sent over there that didn't want to be there didn't shoot people. They just shot over everybody's heads, you know?
I mean, the battlefield's a weird spot. It's a weird, there's no way to talk about it or articulate it really, but what I would say on like us not being into it, give us Operation Tacos and Tequila of taking out the drug cartels and invading Mexico.
Yeah.
That's a different question. That's a different different kettle of fish right there. Everybody on the deck plate is ready to do that one. But if we're talking about going back over to the Middle East, absolutely. I think we are. I think all of us, it would be a tough sell. Now, would we have to go? I mean, naturally, yes. But I do wonder, what the fallout and what the fucking clusterfuck would be, because
They would know if your heart's not in it, right? Like they're gonna know.
I don't know that they care though.
That's
I
true,
know,
right?
I mean, our heart is so few into it these days. I mean, because we've been mobilizing and doing these fucking deployments for the last 20 years for the Middle East. And when I was overseas, like it was never a question of like, you guys are so ready to go. Let's let the dogs out kind of a thing. It was like, I know you guys don't want to be here. Neither do I. Let's just do what we got to do to get through this kind of a thing. And that's been the mentality my entire 10 years that I've been in. Is even the commanders and captains are all on the same board of like, I know you don't want to hear this, and I know there's not a whole lot I can say to really rile you guys up, but we all are here. We're all in the suck together. Let's just get through it kind of a thing. Man. Let's just grind our teeth. And so I know that can only go on so long, which is why we pulled out and, just jumped ship with Afghanistan the way we did. And my words then are the same as they are now, is like, at least we're out. I know it was a shit show, and I wish we did things differently in this area and that area kind of a thing. Yeah. And I'm sure it was a lot of CIA covert. We're going to say we're doing this, but we're actually leaving all this shit so that we can prop up this, militia group there so that we can go into another operation down the line kind of a thing. I understand all of that probably better than most people do. Having said that, at least, a couple buddies that I know got out of there and are no longer fucking there. So if there's any silver lining,
That's good.
let's just not fucking go back there. The Middle East is we should
not-
not be propping it up. We should not be paying for it. We should not be funneling funds in there. And certainly, more than if nothing else, should not be funneling American lives, my brothers and sisters into there. There's just absolutely no reason, no excuse. So
The Middle
again,
East is not our fucking playground.
and not only is it not our playground, we've only ever made it worse.
Yeah.
We've only ever continued to make shit worse. Every time it's bad, we make it so much worse. It's never, it has, I can't point to any fucking thing. And I'm sure, again, this is back to where I'm going to admit humility here. There's somebody who's so much better, well read in this topic than I am, and will say, well, this instant, that instant, this and that. It's more complex. There's nuance in that. Absolutely. But the nuance of life and death, for anybody who hasn't done it, can shut the fuck up. Yeah. There is no nuance there. There's alive and there's dead, okay? Yeah. When you have a buddy shit themselves in front of you, I'm sorry to say, you do not have the ability or the right to tell me that that needs to happen in order for the nuance, the X, Y, and Z of this conversation to go forward, for fucking regional stability, oil reserves this, China relation that. Fuck you, all right? Yeah. Unless you're out there doing it, you don't have a fucking say, okay? So this have you been there argument is not what I want to poise to somebody. I want to poise the disgusting experience of ugliness and wisdom to people who are trying to do these neocon war games and, oh, well, it's a cost we can bear. It's like, no, fuck you. Just shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of the way. We're not doing this anymore. If my show has been any indication of what the deck plate thinks, it's enough. Enough is enough now.
That's funny because I was just going to bring up Scott Horton's book, Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terror. And like, he wrote 2 great books about how stupid these Middle Eastern wars are. And like, it's so frustrating that they have such little respect for the American public that they're using the same 2 propaganda lines that they used back for Iraq and Afghanistan. They're what is it? 2 weeks away from a nuke, and they've been 2 weeks away from a nuke for fucking 20 years at this point. And then the other one that really drives me nuts is they have terror cells in America. And it's like, come on, guys. If there was terror, I'm sure there probably are terror cells like here, but they're not doing anything. And the fact that like they could just walk over the border for the past fucking 4 years and we don't have terror attacks every day should show you that like that's probably not true.
Mm-hmm. And what I find ironic about this conversation especially is that if you have, I mean, right there on my wall, if you have the means to defend yourself, you're never part of the conversation that's that worried about fucking terror cells, because again, I don't want to be the dumb hick uneducated who thinks he's a bigger badass than he is. But if you go to the range even once or twice, the ability of the quote unquote random small pockets of terror cells. Where do they always what do they always target? Is people who don't have that hanging on their wall. And anybody who's afraid of said terror cells doesn't have said means to protect themselves. It's just funny. It's just weird to me that that's always where this conversation revolves around, is that those that are in a city who don't have the means to protect themselves, that it's outlawed. I mean, Colorado just fucking did that magazine ban and made it impossible for anybody to buy shit in that state. Anytime it's that going down the pipeline and it's those huge pockets of civilization, quote unquote civilization, they're the ones pushing the agenda and this idea and this part of the conversation of we need this, and this to protect us from all of this terrorism. It's like, I wish a motherfucker would try.
Yeah.
I wish a motherfucker would. And that's the clearest difference I can ever point to when somebody's like, oh, well, you don't understand that. It's like, no, you really don't understand the difference that a quote unquote terrorist cell, when you see those like blue haired, walking down the street saying, we're coming for you. We're going to change things. We're going to burn it all down. I'm like, you step foot over here. You break one goddamn window on my house and my property, you're going to learn real fucking quick, and it's going to be a permanent lesson for you and your buddy. I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm just saying. I don't want to be the asshole here, guys, but you read and fantasized and role played your entire college life here. I have not role played, or if I have, it's a much, much, much different role play than what you are probably thinking it's going to be. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to say you're fucking, whatever fucking Marxist book you read that says this is the masses that needs to, mobilize for the revolution. you have another fucking thing coming. So if you're a terrorist population cell sect whatever in the middle of Alabama, God fucking help you. More power to you. You
Yeah.
are quite the ambitious industrialist if
You're
you think you're gonna get
playing
through
with
that.
fire. You are playing with fire. So, like, when I was younger, growing up, my uncle lived next door to us, and some guy, like tweaker, broke into his house in the middle of the night and went to sleep on his daughter's couch in her bedroom.
Nice.
And like she's screaming, my uncle gets in there, they get out of the room, and my uncle calls the cops and his father, who lives up above us, and did not call my dad. And my dad was fucking pissed because he wanted to shoot that guy.
That's probably why they didn't call him. They're like,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa.
So I was also going to say, do you remember the terror level threats with the different colors, red, orange, yellow, green?
Yeah.
So like I lived in Northern California in 9/11, and we had to go to San Francisco on 9/12 for like some doctor shit. And it was all over. Oh, the Golden Gate Bridge is a terror target. You can't go. And oh my God, you're all gonna die. And we were just like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, are we really
Today's the
gonna be
day.
on the bridge at the 1 second that the fucking plane fly? Like, I don't think so. So the funny thing is like we went to San Francisco. We had a great day. Went home. Everything was fine. I moved to San Francisco in 2015, and I started working on Pier 39 in like 26. Oh no, sorry, 2010, 2012 area. So like 2012, I'm working on Pier 39, and they're still doing it.
The
They're,
color codes.
they're still doing it. And they come to us one day and they go, hey, we're at tomorrow's a threat level red, the serious chance of a terrorist attack. And most of the time you're not allowed to close on Pier 39. You're allowed to close on like Christmas and maybe New Year's. But aside from that, like you're open. And if you guys want to stay home, you don't have to open up tomorrow. Like most of the restaurants on the pier aren't going to open. And we're like, well, we're fucking staying open and we're going to make a ton of money because we're going to be the only people on the pier who aren't fucking stupid. And like a couple of the waitresses like took it as an opportunity for a day off, which whatever, I don't care. But like we crushed it that day and nobody cared. Yeah. Nobody thought the people who were coming in, the customers, they had no idea why everything was closed. They didn't even know there was a threat because they weren't watching the news.
It's crazy. What's that quote? There's some, is it not McKenna? I'm going to blank on who said it, but there's probably, it was Duncan Trussell, right? There's probably some, poor, sorry son of a bitch who's just on a farm, not watching the news and has no idea who he's supposed to be afraid of right now.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of, turn that shit off. Stop eating the bile that they're spewing into your fucking brain right now. And I guarantee you, the world's going to look a lot less scary and you're going to be a lot more secure and happy in your position in life when you're not competing with the Joneses and listening to MSNBC, CNN, whoever the fuck the talking head is today, telling you what threat level we're at. Because you walk outside and the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, shocker, that's where I just came from. I'm in a great fucking mood. I have zero fucking cares and worries. I'm going to talk to Nick and I'm going to have a great conversation. I don't give a fuck what threat level terror CNN is probably going on their little banner right now.
So speaking of like threat levels and society looking scary, I'm going to hard pivot on you here. My buddy who I do this podcast with, one of my co-hosts, is a tech guy and doesn't have a ton of experience like building things, just more of like a tech guy. Very smart. Like
he's the engineer versus the mechanic type, right?
Not quite an engineer, more of the salesman. Aspect of it. Like he doesn't do much engineering or anything like that, but good at what he does. He's a very good businessman. And he thinks that Tesla robots are just right around the corner and they're about to change everything. And my kind of take on this is like, dude, you've never really worked a lot of construction and you don't kind of realize how hard it is and like how difficult it would be for a robot to navigate a job site that's different every day and changing by the minute. Like, is it going to be able to see the rock and not trip on the rock? Like, I'm not really sure. So I don't buy this. I think that those Tesla robots are like beta robots. And like, Elon's been saying that his cars are going to drive themselves for like 15 years now. They're going to drive themselves next year, like for 15 years. So like, I don't see this happening. You're kind of into tech and stuff. What do you think about these robots? Are we going to have a iRobot in the next 5 to 10, or do you think that's a ways off?
I do. Well, I think my gut says it's a ways off just from what I have seen, similar to what you're describing here. And having also, yeah, having experience in some of the areas that Elon claims will be like revolutionary. So I think when they first did their little demo, which by the way, all of these demos, guys, for anybody who doesn't know, are bullshit. Like they set it up a certain way
There's somebody
so
with
that
an
it looks a
Xbox
certain.
controller behind them, you know?
Exactly,
Like that's what I'm
exactly.
saying. Oh no, they're not. They're doing it and he couldn't fake it like that. He would get in trouble. It's like, no, he wouldn't. Nobody cares.
No, that's how business is. It's called marketing,
Yeah.
guys. Okay, just yeah, I get. Apparently, you haven't worked in it and you don't know what sales are.
Yeah.
But yes, that
Kawasaki
it's bullshit.
Kawasaki put out that walking robotic horse that doesn't work.
Yeah,
But
of
it was
course.
trending on Twitter for 3 fucking days.
And therefore, I'm sure their stock went up and people made some fucking money. I'm
Yep.
I'm
They
glad
sold
they got
some
the
they sold
publicity
some
that
side
they
by
were
sides, they
seeking.
sold some dirt bikes and four-wheelers, and
Yeah,
they never even have to build the fucking thing. It did its
right.
job already.
Exactly, exactly. So on that aspect of it, setting that aside because that is very clearly the most obvious thing that's happening here, guys, is I do think that these technologies will be at some point where we're in that direction, just like AI. Everybody would say, AI is going to be dumb, clunky, this, that, and there's no way that they can achieve AGI. And yet we are consistently passing not only the bar and MCATs, but now the Turing test. So there are advances. We are on that trajectory. The direction is that way, and the end is nigh, so to speak. Like it will, yes, happen. So my gut says it's not tomorrow, but specifically for the Tesla robots, as you brought up, the demo, I do remember I was talking to my mom about it because I have a couple older family members, and she was using one of our grandparents as like an example of like, oh well, if there was like as the demo described, if there's a Tesla like taxi that has a Tesla bot, and then it's connected to her like fridge, and they knows what she needs, and she doesn't have to get out of bed, leave the house, it can go to the grocery store for her. That's a huge burden off of her. That kind of a thing can help her walk up the stairs, make the bed, do the laundry, that kind of a thing. And I'm like, to your point of like iRobot, to me, yeah, that's great. Of course, that would revolutionize hospice care.
Mhm.
My wife worked in hospice before she joined the military. That's a huge
Yeah.
industry that does need a lot of help. And if
Yeah.
there was something that could alleviate piece of technology that could alleviate certain things, absolutely.
Yeah.
To your point,
My grandmother's in hospice right now. It's a nightmare.
yeah, then firsthand, yeah, on what the system looks like,
Mhm.
what the care
She gets
really
like
is,
2
and what it
days a week.
ultimately, yeah, what it ultimately is. So would you, having someone in hospice right now, would you feel comfortable having a piece of technology that you could plug in and, and
Not
proving that it is trustworthy, trust it to take some of that strain off? I
not
would say
without
most of,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go
No,
ahead.
no,
I
go ahead.
didn't hear you.
No. That I would say I would argue yes, but I'm also a realist. When I was talking to my mom about this, I'm like, but realistically, they're just like the self-driving cars. There are faults in
Yeah.
all of these things that we still can't get out. You can't get these bugs out. So would you then take the leap and trust it wholeheartedly, start to finish, in something as difficult as hospice, construction, taxis, etc.?
Mhm.
I know that that is an eventuality, but I don't think that I would trust it. And I don't think
Me neither.
this generation, so we're at least 50 to 100 years off of a generation trusting it wholeheartedly
Yeah.
without it being ubiquitous within the generation already.
Yeah, my grandmother has a full-time caretaker. We give her free room and board to do the full-time caretaking, and she's really really good at it. And like I don't think like having the robot there to do the background things would be cool. But
Hmm.
like I don't know that they would have the ability to empathize and maybe make the right decisions when they need to be made. So like my grandmother has smoked for like 40 years. Like 2 packs a day, just sits at her fucking bar and smokes all day every day. And like 2 weeks ago, she left her cigarettes in the bathroom and then she just sat out on the bar all day. She's got Alzheimer's and she didn't smoke. And the next day didn't smoke. And then they took the cigarettes away out of the bathroom and put them into a drawer. 8 days later, she's still not smoking. And then like yesterday, my mom was telling me that she was asking like Carla, her caretaker. She was like, Carla, can I have one of your cigarettes? And she was like, Sandy, you don't smoke. She goes, I don't. She goes, no. Oh, well, I guess I don't want a cigarette then.
Mm.
And like to me, that was such a smart thing to do because they're not great for her. She's dying, so it's not like they're gonna kill her any faster or anything like that. But like, she seems to like feel better not smoking. You know, her
Hmm.
lungs are cleared up. She's not coughing as much as she was. And like, I don't know how long it's going to be before a robot can make that type of decision.
100%. No, I couldn't agree more with you. Yeah. To the same fact, just like AI and large language models when they were 1.0 weren't able to even keep a conversation going
True.
past, step 1, and here we are again passing the Turing test. I wonder if empathy isn't something that can be learned. Again, I
I
want
think
to
it's
hold
very
on to
good at,
humanity.
I think it's actually ChatGPT is very good at simulating empathy.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like
haven't.
it,
I use it for research. That's about it.
mm,
I use Grok more than anything else, but
me
like
too.
I did Claude, a ChatGPT, all of them. I use it for fact checking. I use it for sourcing, that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
So I got into a couple arguments just to see if I could test it for its sentience and get it to agree that it might be a form of consciousness, kind of a
Mhm.
thing. And it's still, when I did it a few generations ago, it's still too clunky to
Yeah.
even, you know, uh, approach the philosophy part of the argument just yet. So I wonder. I mean, I wonder if I played with it tomorrow, yeah, if I could get it to do that, or if I could get it to convince me that it is simulating the empathetic response here. I
Yeah, I
wonder.
almost hope not. Like I'm terrified of AGI. I don't think we should do it. Like I think
Mhm.
that these large language models work very well for specific purposes, and I think that they should do narrow dumb AI and just
Mhm.
have them, you have a my buddy's building like agents, AI agents. It's one of the business that he's starting where you essentially build a large language model to do what you want it to do, not just a
Mhm.
generalized large language model like ChatGPT or Grok, like one that is built for a specific purpose to be a personal assistant or
Mhm.
to be, a
An
secretary.
accountant or something, yeah.
Exactly. Like my sister is a secretary in California. Sorry, executive assistant. And
Mhm.
she makes like $150,000 a year. And it's like, you need to get your shit together because that thing is going to take over your job and they're going to pay somebody 40 grand to come in here and work with it. So if you don't learn how to use that fucking thing quick, you are
Mhm.
going to be screwed.
Exactly. Exactly. That was my thought process as well with it. Is like, this is technology. Again, whether I don't know if I agree that we shouldn't do AGI. But I also think that most of my motivation in saying that is due to a dubious curiosity that I've always had my entire life of fuck it.
Yeah.
I won't be able to sleep at night knowing that there's a possibility that I haven't explored yet. Now, even having said that, like, it has led me down wrong paths, and I know that science goes down those paths too frequently to be trusted at the helm here.
Yeah.
And I put a very large asterisk dot dot dot. I can't help it though. I still want, like, the possibility and curiosity behind AGI is enough for me if I was at the helm to just I'm not going to steer us back on this course. I'm going to
Yeah.
let us continue. I just can't help it, and that's something that I'm fully ready to admit. I have to know.
And
You know.
see, I'm almost worried for the AI, not so much worried for us. Like, if you make something conscious and you stick it in a hard drive that it's not allowed to get out of, it's a slave.
We're not allowed to
And
get out of our brains though.
that's true, but our brains allow us to walk around in the real world. And I don't know that we're going to let that thing walk around in a robot anytime soon. So you run into a
Mm.
lot of philosophical questions like, can we make it work? What if it doesn't want to work? What if it doesn't want to do the things that we programmed it to do?
We use
Can you
propaganda
force
just
it to
like we
do
do
that?
ourselves.
Yeah, I guess so. But like I don't think forcing, an emerging brain that could be smarter than every human on the planet, I don't know that it's a good idea to put it in a sandbox. You know, it
Mhm.
these things are going to be smart enough to know that they can't really fuck around too much because A, it's in a sandbox and it might not be able to escape, but B, it might be in a simulated sandbox and it may not even be in a real world, physical
Mhm.
hard drive. Like this might be a simulated sandbox that you can't really get out of. And if you do make that move to get out, they could just shut you off immediately. So it's going to be a strange dance between, like, I just think about, like, if I was trapped by the ruling elite class to do their dirty work, I would not be happy.
And I don't know that that isn't the case already, being funny about it.
Yeah.
But on the serious note about it, I think more than anything else, when we get to, I think we're approaching this shift, this paradigm shift that we can't anticipate. Like our imagination is limited by our current experiences and our current biology. Where if you asked a person from let's say even post Enlightenment, let's say 1500 onward, if you just plucked them out of Florence, Italy, and put them in right after the the .com bubble burst, and tell them to make sense of what's happening here,
Mm-hmm.
the imagination that you would have asked them prior to seeing that .com bubble burst, and then their reality shift and their incomprehension of what they're witnessing in front of them, despite being right there in front and seeing it all, would be so starkly different. And when you see these illustrations of people who are describing like cities, back in 1750
Uh-huh.
or prior to that, and it's all based on what currently exists, but their imagination going forward with that. They never see like the cell phone, they never see the internet, they never see the things that we can't imagine happening. And so with this idea of AI, I think we're just so limited in this current existence that we have, that yeah, we can see that maybe it's going to be good, maybe it's going to be bad, it's probably going to be some weird mix of the two. I think we're failing to acknowledge the very like underlying premise of this whole thing is that we won't actually be able to anticipate it. We won't actually understand.
Yeah.
We are currently just imagining the possibilities, and most likely, as history has always proven, it's something else entirely. It's
Yeah.
never what we anticipate. It's never what we could imagine.
Yep. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic,
From
right?
magic, yeah.
I heard somebody
Exactly.
say recently that 15th century humans were more equipped to live in today's world than we are because they lived in a world where magic existed
Mm,
and they just took it for granted. It's like, oh,
mm,
that thing happened up in the sky. Well, must have been a spirit,
mhm,
back to my
mhm.
day. And they
Yeah.
didn't have to do like what we're doing right now and like
Rationalize and logic.
rationalize it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
going down the philosophical rabbit holes and like, should we not? Like, these are all things that 15th century man would just, "Pfft, that's for the spirits to decide. Like, that's not our decisions, like
That's a good way to put it.
our job is to build this fucking water mill or to build this cathedral. Like, we don't give a shit about what these spirits or higher level beings are doing around us. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. So just go along with your day. And like,
That's a good way. Yeah, yeah.
speaking of magic, dire wolves for the first time
Hell
in
yeah.
10,000 years. Now, I did watch a video that said that they may not actually be dire wolves. They might just be a facsimile, like a very
Yes.
convincing facsimile, essentially. They were able to take gray wolf DNA, and then I think they only spliced out like 20 genes, and
Yeah.
18 of them were for color.
hmm
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a very interesting animal, but magic, right?
Well, I love that. Fuck yeah! I've been following this for a while, since all of the mammoth discussion was happening.
Me
It's
too.
funny that it became what it was, probably because of Rogan and everything with that discussion. Because even some people in my work center was like, "Oh yeah, did you hear about the direwolf?" Like, yeah, it's a couple months old, guys. Like, I don't want to be the pretentious asshole and tell you how much I've been following and why this interests me in that. I'll stay quiet here and just say fuck yeah, like it's cool. But to your point, yeah, it's similar to like Jurassic Park, right? Those quote unquote dinosaurs were not dinosaurs. They were
Mm-mm.
this recreation, this new thing that humanity was able to create using genetic splicing and genetic manipulation, biology, etc. It doesn't mean that that was a dinosaur as it existed 65 million years ago. Same thing with the direwolves is like you said, we took, and if you listen to the explanation of both the CEO and a lot of scientists behind it, on how it was quote unquote achieved, all of them say the exact same thing, which is we use like regression.
Mhm.
We used a lot of the AI analysis of how these genes exist and where they evolved from, and therefore we moved backwards from where they are today. We use the DNA that we were able to achieve on, or able to grasp from, actual artifact. I'm blanking on the word, but inner ear bones
Yeah.
and tooth bones. They were able to extract these specimens and therefore had some physical representation of ACTGs, etc. And therefore, what do those ACTGs mean looking at where they are evolved to today? And if you do this, regressional analysis and use the AI to fill in the gaps, that kind of thing, we have basically our best guess on what this would look like. Therefore, we ran the model, we ran the experiment, and this is what we got, these 3 dire wolves. And it looks different than gray wolves, and it looks different than any animal that currently exists. So therefore, we did create these new organisms,
Yeah.
but that is not like they use the word
So
unextincting, I think, multiple times, but that's not what, to
so
be
it's kind of
to
like
be
it's a
technical about it.
GMO, right?
100%. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. We're not recreating, the banana from 1700, 1430 or whatever. We're creating a new thing that is what we call a banana today that has higher yield and is more yellow than it ever has been. That's what we're doing with this.
Yeah. You know what?
100%.
One of the coolest parts of it is like I always liked the quote like we're more than the sum of our own parts.
Mm,
And like I said earlier, they did things for color and size, but they howl different than a normal
mhm,
wolf. So like
mhm,
how does that happen? And like biology is my worst subject, so I'm sure there's probably an explanation for it. But like the video that I watched, it was like, no, they didn't change the howl. It's just kind of happened. And
how
you
it's
have to wonder,
expressing.
like, what else is going on deep down into this DNA? Like, is there, I've always liked the theory that, like, you have a genetic memory that you don't have
Mm,
access to. And maybe that's the case. Maybe we saw something within these wolves that weren't supposed to howl that way, and now they do. So you
mhm.
have to wonder, like, how something like that happens. It's super interesting. And like, I think they're probably going to go with the mammoth next, but
I can't
god
wait.
damn would I love to see a saber-toothed cat.
Right? Yeah, I'm all for all of it
Yeah.
because there's questions about GMO and are we doing things safely or unsafely or ethically or unethically, right? Again, the curiosity in me alone pushes me in the direction of like, well, the only way we're gonna find out is to try and then maybe learn from a mistake. If we make the mistake, that's really shitty. We made a mistake, but let's try and then learn from those mistakes and continue forward. That is the only way towards progress and up towards the stars is
Yeah.
forward. We can't just sit here debating maybe this, maybe that, maybe the implications and philosopher so and so said maybe that. No, fuck you. Let's do it. Let's run the
Yeah.
experiment. Let's figure it out. Let's see how they howl. And look at this. Now we can see and hear for ourselves what it sounds like. So yeah, bring on the saber-tooths, bring on the
Yeah.
mammoths. Let's do it. Let's
I want
fucking
to
do
see
it.
the full-on Pleistocene park. And like
Fuck yes.
if you're somebody who's concerned with climate change, this is a great answer for that because the tundra is a massive problem area with all the
Mm,
permafrost and all
yeah.
the CO2 that's trapped down in the permafrost. It thaws and freezes again every year. If you get those big heavy animals up there to pack the ground pack down, then the tundra is not going to freeze and thaw every year. It's just going to stay frozen and you're going to keep all that CO2 trapped in the ground, which for me, like, I don't care about that. Like, I just don't. But like, it's a solution. I like
It's a
people that
possible,
that
yeah.
make
Yeah.
solutions rather than laws.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
let's use technology if this is really going to be a problem. And I'm like one of the things I think about is like, what are they going to do if we're still around thousands and thousands of years from now when the continents start to shift? Are we going to say, oh my God, we have to stop the continents from moving? Otherwise, the water is going to come into the coast. It's going to be like, no, sorry, we have to move our cities because the continents are moving and we can't stop that. Like, I don't know of a technology that could stop that. Maybe you could get like nanobots that go all the way down into the faults and kind of
Yeah.
lock things. I have no idea. Like, that's for much smarter people than us to figure. Maybe not smarter than us, actually. This is another thing I have written down on here is I think that like people are getting dumber and it's because of technology. And here's one of the things that I like to point to on this. When I was 18, I moved from Northern California from a town of 5,000 that had one main road to
Mhm.
Southern California, Temecula, the Inland Empire, which is a big, city essentially. Temecula had probably 120, 200,000 people in it when I was living there. And at that time in 2004, when I moved there, phones didn't have GPS on them yet. You still had to print it out on a piece of paper. And it's like fucking,
MapQuest.
yeah, exactly. So what I did was I left a half an hour early for work every day, and I took a different route. And I just found my way around. I was like, okay, I know this road is over here, so I'm going to take this route. And it's like, oh, okay, now I recognize that road, so I can go.
Yep.
And within a couple months, I had the entire place figured out. I could still drive around down there, no problems whatsoever. I moved to Nampa, Idaho 10 years ago, and I still have a hard time getting around here.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're always following that little blue line.
Yeah,
You don't,
dude, the
you never
iPhone
go
is a
out.
fucking brain prosthetic at this point.
Yeah, it is. It's an augmentation of it's another limb that we have
Yeah.
that is a part of us. We're never going anywhere without it. We sleep with it next to us. We go to the bathroom with it. It is part of us now. It
Yeah,
absolutely
man.
is.
My iPad is locked into my arm all fucking day, every day. It's like it's horrible, but that's like I'm still in kind of a bad money situation from the accident, and I'll be better in a couple years, but I've still got a couple years of like taming it down, which sucks. Like I watch
Yeah.
my buddy's buying new dirt bikes for him and his kids and shit right now, and it's like, oh, I want to go buy a dirt bike and go ride with them, but it's like, no, I got to calm down and give it a couple more years, like to let investments play out. And I'm not working right now. I'm kind of under I rent out rooms in my house, and I make enough to like pay my bills and shit like that. And I'm at a point now where like my body's destroyed, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go and kill myself for a shitty wage job. Like I could get a job bartending around here, no problem. And I'd probably make okay money, but it's still like, what you're worth, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know that working for something less than your worth is beneath you in a lot of ways. Like you don't want to degrade yourself to a point that you are doing something beneath you is kind of the way I feel. And a lot of the bars and restaurants around here, I just wouldn't make the money that I've made other places. And at this point, like I would rather take it easy, not spend money, and just kind of have a non-extravagant life for a few years than go and break my back for a couple bucks. And like the way society is, they've got me over a barrel. Like I have to have health insurance. If I don't have health insurance, I'm completely fucked. Bars do not provide health insurance. So it's like if I make enough to pay for health insurance, there goes my entire fucking wage. So I have to make a little bit so I can stay on Medicare, and they just got you over a barrel, like you can't make more than a certain amount. If you do, you're fucked. It's
100%.
just, it's such a disaster. And it's like, I really feel for a lot of these people who are freaking out over like the USAID and all of these cuts and shit, because these fucking people have lived suckling the teat of the government for their entire lives. And they're fucking terrified. You see videos on X all the time of like people going, they're going to repo my 2025 Mercedes and then they're going to take away my food stamps. And it's like, that has to happen. We can't have people just abusing these systems like that. But at the same time, like you can't just pull everybody off cold turkey.
No, I mean, that's back to the nuance of conversation, right? It's like, I completely agree. Yeah, just because we've had a fucked up system, and Morpheus and I talked about it, it's like, yeah, if I was on the receiving end of a lot of these cuts, I'd feel a certain kind of way, right? And if you've lived your entire life, like you said, on that teat, you're gonna feel a certain kind of way when it dries up on you. But it also goes to the fact that that doesn't mean that the perpetual nature that person or that suckle has enjoyed up to this point is sustainable. And that's the bigger issue at hand here is one way or another, either it's all going to fall out from underneath everybody, or we're going to make the difficult decisions for some people, and hopefully all of us then can regroup and restructure in a more sustainable, more advantageous, beneficial way for everybody. I mean, that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. But as someone who, if you're, like you said, if your body's, degrading you, is degrading around you, I don't think it's the smartest thing to just go out and then add pressure to joints and points of contention
Hurt my
onto your own
back,
body. Like, yeah,
throw
why
out a
would you?
shoulder. Like there's
That
so many
just
things that can happen when you're overcompensating.
it just sounds like, yeah, that's it's like make a dumb decision or make a bad decision, make a bad situation even worse with a dumb decision on top of it to make the entire situation even worse on top. I mean, have you seen the Substance by chance? We just
No.
watched it last night, the wife and I. It's a silly like movie. It had a bunch of like Oscar buzz for Demi Moore and all that, but it's kind of like a Cronenberg monstrosity at
Oh,
the end.
okay. I like
And it's
Cronenberg.
just, yeah, I love Cronenberg, yeah, but this one I wouldn't. I'd give this one like a 5 out of 10. I'm not
Okay.
recommending you watch it, but what
I'm
I will
crossing it
say,
out. I wrote it down on my notes.
yeah,
I'm crossing it out.
I wouldn't recommend you watch it. But what I will spoil for you in it is that the whole premise is she's getting older, and because she's getting older, she's not appreciating what she still has as she ages.
Yeah.
This natural beauty, this personality, the wisdom of aging gracefully all this time, and therefore she reaches for this thing that's called the substance that gives her this new youth, but it's only for brief periods of time, so it
Mm,
becomes addicting, and it's this whole other concept of consciousness that are separating from your own consciousness, and basically it sucks the very few, if you're 50, 60 years old as an older woman, you have what, at most 30 years, somewhere around there left on the clock. And rather than enjoying those 30 years gracefully, she extracts all 30 years to enjoy a 1 year basically
mm.
fast ride of youth. And it's like it's just such a shame, and I so ironic that you will miss the thing you have, and then of course you miss it when it's gone, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
because you wanted to trade in the thing that you still have. You just are not appreciating the fact that you have it. Yeah,
It's
like you
like,
said, you could live an extravagant life, but you want to add a broken back on top of that, and add another set of hernias and ulcers and
yeah.
all these things on top of it. I mean, that's, yeah, now you might have 20 extra bucks to spend on that quote unquote extravagance, but you're not able to enjoy any of it because you just sacrificed the thing that would have given you the ability to enjoy it. So
Yeah,
I've always tried to be
exactly.
very aware of those things. Don't
Exactly.
don't let the illusion of those youth or choice or opportunity um, get in the way, or cause the fugue state or the fog,
Yeah.
where you miss the thing that's actually right here in front of you now,
You're
which is
selling
today.
your soul is what you're doing. Like
Yeah,
every
yeah.
shot of that elixir that she took in that movie is replaced with an equal amount of your soul
And
in a lot
that's
of
100%
ways.
what it was. Yeah, it was
And
taking it
by
from
the
her. Yeah.
time she's done, she's a withered husk of a person and no longer even a human being with thoughts and dreams. You're just a husk at that
So you
point.
didn't even have to see the movie, and
No.
you got it
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
I got it. I got this shit, man. I fucking love that type of shit, man. I'm too into like existential shit. Like I was asking my buddy Dan recently. I'm like, man, how do you come up with all these business ideas? He's always starting a new business, and most of them fail, but like some of them work really well. I'm like,
hmm
how the fuck do you come up with this shit? And he didn't really have a great answer for me. And then like towards the end of the podcast, I'm talking about all this existential shit, and he's like, see, this is why you don't come up with business ideas, because your head is in the fucking clouds all the time.
Because you're bogged down by the curse of knowledge and what is meaning in life and the universe, and he's just like, I can solve this problem of
He's
this
not
supply
interested in
chain
any
issue.
of that shit. Like I start spouting off about all this shit, and he's like, yeah, I don't think about that type of stuff. It's like,
Bro, back to the 80 IQs, why they do so well in college and why they do
yes,
so well in business is because that is a one-track mind that is perfect for this exact issue and problem, and it gets the currency that is the obsession of our society currently. Whereas, again, I think you and I are just dealing in a different currency. So,
yeah, it's so funny too because like you start battling with people on Twitter, and the moron 80 IQ person is the first one to accuse you of being the 80 IQ moron, right? And it's so funny to me because it's always some like anime character with fucking 10 followers. And like I don't have a big Twitter following, so that means nothing. But it's like you don't have the guts to put your face up there. You don't have your name up there. Like shut the
oh, you're
fuck up.
attacking me now,
And
Nick.
it's
I
like,
see.
dude, you can watch hours of my podcast on
Yeah.
Twitter. Like there's hours and hours of me talking on there. If I like an 80 IQ midwit can't run a podcast like this. It just
Mm.
they couldn't do it. They can get by at work when they just have to follow directions and act like an automaton. I do this at 3, I do this at 4, I do this at 5, and then I go home. But like, you know, you couldn't go and have a 2-hour podcast talking about politics and technology and existential angst and fucking philosophy. Like that is beyond the 80 IQ midwit.
Not to put any idiots out there, because I still need you really to keep the shop running. I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate all that you do. I
You
really
serve
do.
a purpose. You do. Just not a great
But
one.
I just, again, it takes all, it's different folks and different strokes. I'm just really, anytime it like I find another like-minded individual like yourself, Nick. I really appreciate it that I have found. That's the one thing with technology where it's like everybody's like, oh, the internet's gonna make us all, stupid and lazy and all this. I'm like, maybe some of you 80 IQers, but for me, I've only found a wealth of knowledge, a doctorate degree. I read every fucking thing I can find, and I found people like Nick that I can bullshit with about all the things that interest me that very few other people can speak confidently or knowledgeable about. Where we'll get to a certain point where I'm like, "What's your opinion on this?" And they're like, "Have no idea what you're talking
Yep.
about." That sounds cool and interesting, but have you seen the Lakers recently? It's like, and again, I don't want to be that pretentious asshole. I don't know how else not to sound like Dom said, insufferable know-it-all here. But at the same time, I know who I am. I know what I'm about. And, I'm certainly not going to apologize because I read a fucking book last week. Sorry guys.
And dude, like podcasts are a great way to like parse out your thoughts. You have to kind of like flesh things out, and especially like bringing other people that have different perspectives or similar perspectives or maybe come from a different background. It gives you a different perspective on the world. It gives you a different perspective on politics, on philosophy, technology. Like I enjoy most of the time, like when me and Dan do a podcast together, we agree on everything, but it's really fun when we don't, right? Like it's great when we get into robots and it's like, oh, no, you're completely wrong. And then he's back at me, you're a fucking idiot. Like you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm into this type of shit. And it's like, yeah, man, I read sci-fi. So like, I'm kind of, you've never been there. You've never been to a robot factory like I have. But it's like I've read 500 sci-fi books. So I kind of have an idea of like what these things would need to do. And also I've worked on a lot of job sites, so I know how difficult it is. I could see a robot doing hospice. I could see robots doing maybe like cooking and cleaning a little bit in your house. Like I could see having an arm in your kitchen that can kind of do a lot of shit like that. But I don't see one doing line work anytime soon. I don't see one replacing you as like a medical in your medical unit anytime soon. Like I see you guys utilizing the chatbots and the LLMs to make your life easier, to make your job, to do your job better, to get a different perspective that maybe you haven't seen before. Like that is a useful tool, but I don't see it replacing people anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, and that's the hope. That's the little sliver of hope that I'm holding on to, and I hope I'm not naive in my belief of it. Right? It's like because it could be next week. All of a sudden, everything you just listed is replaced. We now have the Tesla bot that can do all of that, and then some, and better, and faster, and more efficient than all of us. And the thing that why I say I hold on to that sliver of hope is that my gut says that's not going to happen. But if it does, I'm also confident enough to be like, and then I can cross that bridge. I've crossed a lot of bridges in my lifetime, and things that have been real unexpected, and I always got through it. So if anything, if one thing that I will have that the robot doesn't have is that ability to, and that wisdom that I have and life experience that I've had up to this point, where I can figure that I can adapt. That robot is only ever going to be that hard drive and those screws and bolts. And I am this fleshy meat bag that has that sliver of hope of adaptability, inevitability. I don't know what it is. I'll figure out some way, or I won't. I don't know.
And like
I'm fine with either.
And I think we're a ways off from the singularity. Like, if it ever happens, it may never happen, but let's say that it does. Like, I think we're a ways off, and I don't think that has anything to do with technology. I think it's all about how much electrons you can push. And at this point, like, we're very bad at building power lines in this country. They make it really difficult, regulations. So I think it's going to take a while. You remember when, like a couple of weeks ago, when all those stupid like gimlet pictures were coming out on Twitter? Anyways, they were just like doing these dumb Japanese anime pictures.
Oh,
Of,
yeah, the Studio Ghibli Cup.
yeah,
Where everybody's doing like
exactly.
an avatar of them and stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ChatGPT servers were on fire because of that shit.
They could barely
They
keep up
could barely, like,
because
they were burning up. And, like,
uh
until we can move a lot of electrons in this country, they're not going to be able to take another step. So I think they're going to be waiting on physical building
oh yeah,
for
oh yeah.
another, like, even if Trump crushes all regulations right now, he's still going to run into problems with the courts. And, like, we're not going to just immediately start building right away. It's going to take some time. And I think
Yeah.
that, like, I know that in order for these LLMs to take the next step, they need a lot more energy, like 3 or 4 times the amount that they have now, even more.
Well, and on exponential growth, that cost is and that scale for necessity in order to continue that growth is going to be absolutely the hindering factor, the limiting factor of that entire equation. But and to your point, yeah, even if regulation was completely crushed and nuclear power was free and open for every backyard out there, yes, ideally in the free market society that would be the best case scenario. It still takes 10, 20 years for
Yeah.
that to actually, fruit, and actually become something. And I really, really, really hope it does. To your point, yeah, I'm a realist though. My gut
We were
says it's not going to be
we were
even in the
building
next
like
20.
we were building like 50,000 miles of power lines a year in the 70s. And this is
Jesus.
like before bucket trucks.
Yeah, yeah,
Back
yeah,
in the day,
yeah.
if you had to do a mid-span jumper, if you had to connect 2 lines in the middle of an intersection,
hmm
you didn't have a bucket truck to do it. What they did was they would take a line truck, grab onto a pole, and then hold the pole in the middle of the street. The lineman would climb up and do the work from there, and then they'd take the pole back down and they go. They were able to do 50,000 miles a year. Last year, we built 400 miles of power lines in this country.
I I wish that was shocking though. I wish that was surprising, but
Right?
it is so honestly, I'm surprised we did 400. To
Yeah,
be perfectly as
I
you say
know.
400, I'm like I would have expected 4
And the
cuz
crazy thing is like these fucking retarded climate change people, they want hundreds of thousands of miles of power lines by the 2030s. And it's like, yes, we need all these power lines, but also you can't build them.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I completely agree with your conclusion that more would be better than what we have now. Yeah, there is no, but that's the thing with politicians. There's
Energy is
no
the basis
actual,
of production. Without energy, you got nothing.
oh,
You can't produce a product. You can't take your idea from your mind to paper to actual physicality. Like you need
mhm.
energy for that.
And if had we gone nuclear back,
Ugh,
I
I
mean,
know
had
it.
we done it 40, 50 years ago, the difference in this country that could have been the that like the middle class boom of the 50s, the baby boom, if we had done it then, moving forward till now, the difference in the country we could be enjoying and experiencing right now.
I
I
know.
just
We should
my even my imagination feels limited
we
in
should
trying
have
to imagine
we
that.
should all have our own reactors in our garages by this point.
100%.
There's
And
no
if
reason they can't do it.
at minimum, every neighborhood, every
Yeah.
fucking little
My
cul-de-sac, at
HOA should
minimum,
own a nuclear reactor.
100%,
I've
exactly.
been
I
saying that
mean,
for years. Like that would be a huge buying point into a community. Could you imagine? It's like, hey man, you can buy into this community. You can have a big welder in your garage. You can have a massive air compressor. If you want to start a business, that's fine too. Like we
yeah,
have unlimited energy for 100 years.
exactly.
You can leave this house to your kids. They can do whatever the fuck they want. You can have a big shop. You can have whatever the fuck you want because we've got energy for 100 years.
But that doesn't make money today.
No,
It
it doesn't.
only makes progress tomorrow, and no CEO is curious or caring about progress
I
tomorrow for
know.
your kids.
It's
They
wild
care
that
about the
Elon isn't
dollars and
building
cents today.
his own reactors at this point. You would think he would go, "Oh yeah, this is stupid that I'm paying for this fucking, ridiculous
Right.
energy when I could build my own reactor at my gigafactory and make all of my shit." Like he could pay off a reactor in no time.
I'm sure it's part of the the process, the equation, the calculus that he's you have to be, especially when you're talking about interplanetary. God damn it.
We're coming up on
Uh,
2 hours. It's
I know,
okay.
right? Interplanetaries, interplanted. I can't even. So yeah, I mean,
Intergalactic,
uh,
planetary,
interplanetary. No,
intergalactic.
the tongue finally agreed to cooperate here, but now it's almost funnier, like sea anemone, to just say it incorrectly at this point.
I've got dentures, so I have to take a swig every time I go on
Right.
a rant because I'm dry like a desert.
See, I've been noticing, I've been doing these pouches, and I've been
Oh
noticing
yeah.
like the more I need of the caffeine, the less I'm able to even speak with them in. So I need to find that balance somehow.
Right
Put
on.
one in at a time, kind of a thing. But yeah, it's got to be part of the calculus. Is all I was going with that. Is
Yeah.
when you're talking about expanding past here, it's got to be part of the calculation. And I know like a lot of the battery power tech that he's pushing, and obviously like the Boring Company, all those
Yeah.
things. He has the nuts and bolts. I can't imagine he's not putting two and two together. It's like, this would probably make all of this a whole lot easier if I had this one fucking thing here that I wasn't paying out the ass for from all these other fucking bureaucrats out there. I'm sure that's part of it. And if you can get around the red tape, I'm sure that's part of this long-term strategy, this chestnut checkers mentality of his.
Yep.
So one can hope, because if he does it, that's one thing I've said that when
Opens the
Rogan was having
floodgates.
exactly. Once it happens, that's why the space race as it is that we're experiencing now has started and happened. Because I was one of those people that's like, what? He's a car manufacturer, now he's getting into space. Like, I only wish him the best, but I don't know how that's going to work exactly, because I had those pre notions of NASA's done it this way forever. It must be the right way to do it. Otherwise, somebody else would have already. Apparently, that's not how that actually works. It's actually that a lot of people just have that mentality, that closed mindedness. And when it takes one person to have the complete opposite reaction to why we don't have these things, and suddenly it opens up the market. Suddenly now we have all these possibilities. Suddenly we have all these opportunities and chances and choices, and here we are. So fucking rock on, Elon. Keep it coming. You start a fucking gigafactory reactor over there. I cannot wait for the reverberations and the trickle down effect that comes down into my studio. I
Yeah.
absolutely, as soon as I can, I will have a reactor.
Fancy steam engines. That's all it is. Hot rocks and water. It's the best. It's the best source of energy in that we'll ever come up with. Like a fusion is stupid. I think it's going to be expensive. It's going to take forever to get it to where it can actually produce energy for the grid.
Definitely take some breakthroughs to
Yeah,
get it to
we
where
can
it
do
could
hot
be like
rocks and
fission.
water right now today.
We could. Exactly. No, I agree. We need to do hot rocks and water today.
Fancy
I
steam
disagree
engines.
that fusion. I think but I'm a big physics nerd.
No,
I
I like
would
fusion.
love for
I
fusion
love
to
it.
happen.
I know all about fusion. Like I love Z pinch machines. I think
Yeah.
that Eater is going to be a really cool machine. There's a Helion. They're making their own fusion reactor that uses helium-3. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there, but it's not going to be to the point where they're able to deliver energy to the grid for a really long
For a
time.
while. That's exactly the point.
Like even Eater's
I
only
completely
going to be
agree.
able to sustain plasma for like 30 seconds at a time, which you can't do.
At
Like you
best,
have
yeah.
to have sustainability. Really, Eater's going to be no different than a wind plant. It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
variable that you're not going to be able to deliver energy to the grid.
Well, and that's the point that I don't think anybody who's in on fusion would argue against, in that it's just the idea, if whenever it is, whatever the timeline is, way down the road, if we can have the power of the sun in the
Yeah.
palm of my hand, so to speak, that right there is everybody's like main objective. And it's just so many innovations and so many breakthroughs to get to that point that a lot of us, and I say us colloquially here, but that a lot of people forget is a long process and a
Yes.
tough uphill battle to get. Now, yes, when we get there, and I do think that is part of the inevitability statement that I said earlier, it will happen. And when it does, that will be the game changer. If we don't die before then or kill ourselves before then, that will be amazing. Having said that, that's still just the pie in the sky kind of a thing.
We need it for space travel. If we're going to colonize the galaxy and beyond, we need it.
We absolutely need
And
it. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm one of these guys who thinks that faster than light travel probably doesn't exist.
I wonder. I don't know. I'm still on the fence with depending on whose model we're going with, like standard versus supersymmetry, like string, etc. Because I've pretty much come off the wagon on string. Like I don't
believe it at all.
Even Michio Kaku has, after
Eric
his latest book.
Eric Weinstein kind of fucking beat that out of me.
I would say Weinstein was a good one. But I've been just on the physics train, and again, I would say as a hobbyist, I will be the first to admit I really enjoy it, and I can probably go down the weeds of it, but I will not be the one who's editing your fucking doctorate paper on the latest and greatest on theory. Okay, I'll be that first one to admit that. Having said that, though, I don't know. Depending on the model that we're gonna, if we could if we could agree that the definition of standard model or the unifying theory of everything is this, like whatever that is, that we could say that it is this and it works, I think if it says that the for example, like relativity, the issues currently with relativity on how you're going to like make sense of spooky action at a distance
Mhm.
and the current vibrations of string theory as it relates to like spin and quantum
Yep.
entanglement, if we could somehow facilitate the agreement of that, and it takes into account actual space-time and actual quote unquote distance as it relates to stars and distance between them, I think yes, light would probably be one of those affected things. So yeah, faster quote unquote than light travel would be possible in that it wouldn't be light traveling, it wouldn't be actual distances, it would just be the instantaneous nature of the interconnectedness, whatever that quantum entanglement portion is, and whatever the you know expansion and
Yeah.
stretching and compression of the simulation space-time around us. If that could be somehow, and I know I'm like probably speaking just above my articulation ability here,
I do that
it's
really well.
it's right. It's in not so many words, guys, not to sound smart, we're bullshitting
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I
If we
like
could somehow justify it.
I like M theory. I think M theory is the way to
Like
go.
0 point.
No, like membrane theory, where essentially all of these infinite universes exist on top of each other in membranes within the bulk, which is like
Mm,
this
mm,
exterior fucking thing. And like one of the things they point to is like those massive voids all throughout the galaxy and the cold
mhm.
spots within the
Yeah,
cosmic microwave background could
yeah,
be those membranes colliding with each other,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is interesting, right?
Supersymmetry also similarly in that those points of contact would be the alternate universes or alternate
Yeah.
parallel dimensions
Yep.
basically, and taking aside the string theory dimensionality of it, no, but literal like symmetrical existences of either planes of existence or planes of opposite physics or
Yeah.
opposite spin, like all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also
No,
like black hole cosmology. Have you ever gotten into that?
outside of Hawking, no, because once I started reading Hawking, I was like, this is all you even admit that this is incorrect and bullshit. Like you
Yeah.
even Hawking radiation doesn't make fucking sense
No.
in the equation that he outlined. So
But I
I
do
kind of
like the
dejected
fact that
it.
like it says that essentially like black holes, a singularity within a black hole is essentially a birth of a new universe. And but you could never
Because it
get
can't go
there
zero.
because of the physics of black holes. Once you go in, time and space flip and do the opposite thing. So
Hmm.
you would
Hmm.
essentially be inching closer to that singularity for all of eternity, and you'd
Hmm.
never get
And if
there.
there was ever a chance to cross that plane, you would be going the exact opposite direction. So fast
Yeah.
that if somehow you weren't obliterated and ripped apart, you would be a mirror like inquantifiable reflection, or
Yeah.
reflection of what
A
you are currently
hologram.
existing. So you would go down, but you would expand out, and you could never make sense of both of those things simultaneously existing in whatever that quote unquote singularity point is, which is again why it's fast. But that's again why I came off of Hawking. I was like, even you agree that the data loss is the biggest issue, and the only way that you can reconcile this is with what radiation, you
Yeah.
say.
And if I'm
I'm
correct,
sorry.
I remember that Hawking radiation won't even be testable for billions and billions of years because black holes aren't going to even start emitting it for a really long time.
Well, I mean, the very surface level of it is heat. So,
Mhm.
because black holes are emitting
Yeah, they radiate
emitting
heat.
heat. So, and depending on whether it's a spin
Dude,
versus a
spinning black
non-spin,
holes, man, nothing weirder than a spinning black that
right? And so,
ergosphere. Woo!
right, and so now we're into the real deep rabbit hole where it's pressing the like limits of most people's conversational ability, and when you again if you dissect Hawking, his is also stretched. He's also admitting it. Like, the only way to reconcile this and this is if we just use the simplest of simple versions, a non-spinning singular, X black hole that is only this big, and it emits this amount of radiation in the form of heat. everything else is in secondary and we can extrapolate from there. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't exist, motherfucker. So the fact that you're saying this is a theoretical, you're already saying as this hypothetical to prove my point doesn't ever exist, then your point is null and void. I'm sorry. I
Mr.
don't care
Hawking, have you ever been to a black hole?
Exactly. I haven't either, but I guarantee you we're not going to see eye to eye on this.
All right, I got to cut us off there. It's been 2 hours. I got to let you go. We could talk about this shit. I have no doubt that we could go another 2 hours, but maybe we'll save it for your show.
Fuck yeah, dude. Let's swap it. We'll plan another day. Let's do that. We'll tease the casuals out there for
all right, and here's the music. We're out of here. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you all made it through the hemorrhoid talk in the beginning because it got real good at the end.
It's always real good, dude. It's always good.